Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers, including Peter Berryman, John Robertson, Brandon Trano, and IndyCar World Champion Alex Palou. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello and welcome to FindingSpeed's Sebring 2.5 hour event here. The Sebring International Raceway is one of the oldest continuously operating racetracks in the USA, the first race being 72 years ago in 1950. Currently, this is home to one of the biggest 12 hours in the world, the Sebring 12-hour event, of course, and the World Endurance 1,000-hour race, which took place just at the weekend. The raceway occupies a portion of the Sebring Regional Airport, which is used for private and commercial traffic, and was originally a World War II training base for the US Army Air Force. Well, tonight the teams will be using this FindingSpeed event as training for next week's iRacing Sebring 12 hours. But as any drivers know, training and practice will not be enough. Just like the American pilots, they will want to soar to the top of the podium here in this 2.5 hour event, and teamwork will be everything. Welcome to Apex Racing TV. I'm David Whitehouse, and joining me in the commentary box is Adam Thompson, and providing the shots on the production is Lewis O'Reilly. So we've got a great event coming up here with the FindingSpeed team, and just before we head into the actual event, where we're still waiting for a qualifying session to actually start, I'm just going to quickly say thank you to some of the sponsors for this event. So I will just very quickly find that. Here we go. So, FindingSpeed. You might ask what FindingSpeed is if you're new to this channel. FindingSpeed, an iRacing and YouTube content creator providing broadcast special events, track guides and how-to videos for your iRacing enthusiasts. If you head over to findingspeed.com/race to learn about the next broadcast event, which is the Green Hell, which is an epic 2-hour solo event around the Nordschleife, ready for the iRacing Nürburgring 24-hour event. The FindingSpeed community races are always broadcast here on Apex Racing TV, and you can learn more and sign up over on findingspeed.com. These community races are involved purposely just for the drivers to get prepped before a special iRacing special event. So they had one before Bathurst and so on. So the next one will be the Nürburgring event, but for tonight it is the Sebring 2.5 hours. So, just checking, Adam.
I'm here. I'm here.
What? Yeah, I'm just checking you're still there. I hadn't sent you to sleep just yet.
Not yet, no.
What are you sort of expecting from this event?
Well, so David, yesterday I had the honor of covering FindingSpeed's actual league race here, and they ran the GT3s around this track as well, and they had around 40 cars, and it was pretty impressive to see how well those guys in that league were competing. So I see a lot of similar names tonight as I did yesterday. So I'm pretty kind of interested to see how those names that I saw yesterday and some of these newer names that I didn't see yesterday are going to be coming into this race. Not really being a part of the league, maybe not knowing some of these guys and how they race as well. I'm super excited to see, the differences between these Lmp2s. I've never run an Lmp2 around this track. I've run many GT3 races around here, but never an Lmp2. So to see the difference in speed between those Lmp2s and those GT3s is going to be super interesting. I mean, especially coming into Sunset Corner, that huge backstretch. Even, coming out of Sunset and into turn one, there's quite a long straightaway there as well. So just to see the difference in speed and how these guys are able to navigate all the traffic, and that's, the Lmp2s as well as the GT3s.
Yeah, the qualifying session has just begun. Each team and drivers will have 3 laps. So 3 laps per car to set their quickest lap time, as we see some of the cars heading out onto the circuit now. And it's 10 minutes to set your laps, but with lap times around 2 minutes, you won't want to dilly-dally around, will you, Adam?
No, absolutely not. This is a very long track. Again, I'm going to mention the difference between the GT3s and the LMP2s a lot. It's a very long track. Long for the LMP2s, even longer for those GT3s. So these GT3s are not going to want to be wasting any time to get out there and get their laps completed. If you do make a mistake or something like that and have to come back into the pits and reset if you hit a wall or something like that, I just don't know, depending on when you make your mistake, if you're going to be able to get back around for a full out lap and then a full qualifying lap. And what I found out yesterday with these GT3s in qualifying, at least, the first lap is always going to be the quickest anyways for some reason. At least that's what we saw yesterday. Hopefully I get proved wrong today, but so that first lap is really what's going to count regardless. So it's just going to be interesting to say the least how everybody does.
Yeah, it's going to be that kind of session where, yeah, it's a 2.5 hour race, but you don't want to start making mistakes early on in the qualifying session, because you can breed that on into the race. Now, as we mentioned earlier on, Sebring is a very special kind of circuit. We got a couple of different surfaces changes for a start. Round near the end of a lap, it becomes this hard runway concrete. Do you expect that will develop the tyre wear a little bit more, having to adapt to each of the surfaces?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, even though this is a racing sim, iRacing has done such a great job in using different the different textures of all these different, as we watch Okaranza actually coming right now through this concrete portion that you were talking about. You can definitely tell there may be I don't know if the tire wear is going to cause as much of an issue as it is just the changing of surfaces, because I promise you that as you come from concrete to asphalt, going into Sunset Corner, as he's now back on the asphalt, going into Sunset Corner on the concrete, these cars do not react the same as they do around most of the rest of the track. So going to be interesting to see, especially, these first couple laps when people are still jostling and battling for position. And once they get settled down for this pretty long race, it's going to be, just interesting to see how these guys are able to cope with that and manage that.
Yeah, it's something that the drivers will have to manage. Obviously, when they go do the Sebring 12 hours, they'll have teammates to deal with that, whereas most of the drivers, I believe, are doing this solo. I'm just having a look at the team efforts now. Yeah, everyone is doing this, excuse me, as a solo race. Now, names you may recognise in this field, I can tell you straight away, we've got Jakob Behrens, who's been out on this channel before. Hakon Gribstead, Daniel Sivisabo. I think we've got Alan Cargret. Andrew Dawson is another driver who I actually know personally out in so shall we say the real world. So it's very interesting to see how these drivers are going to get on. And there's only 7 LMPs to deal with, but if they all stay together, that's going to make it really difficult for GT traffic when they try and might be in a battle, but then have to get out of the way.
Yeah, it is. It's gonna be pretty. I mean, I'm just looking forward to it. Again, I've never been on an LMP around this track, and just I'm still kind of interested in see the difference in speed. And right now we're looking at it. I mean, you can see Barron's in the LMP2 ran a 146.0, while Fletcher, the first place right now in the GT3s, is all the way back there at 158.0. So that is a 12-second difference around this track. So these guys are going to be, I think, you know how some of these, David, and some of these endurance races, and I mean, this is technically an endurance race. It's a longer race than I'd want to run by myself. It's not going to get boring per se, even though it's not ever boring. I think these guys are going to be battling with cars and each other the whole race. I really don't think there will be much time for them to step back and take a breath, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, as the drivers are continuing their qualifying sessions just now. Just to run you through what is happening at the moment, we have 4 LMPs out there having set a time, as you were mentioning earlier. 45.2 is your fastest so far by Daniel Sivisabo, the Hungarian, and the fastest, and 12 cars out in GTs, which the fastest is 158.03. So you're looking roughly, if my maths are correct, which they probably won't be, being lapped every, we'll get there in a minute, about 15 to 20 laps. These cars should come around with no issues if everybody's running flat out. But with so many GT cars, they will be running probably at a slower pace because they'll be overtaking and battling each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And these GT3s are, as you did mention, there are quite a few more of those than there are the LMPs tonight. So there's definitely going to be battles in both classes, but this GT3 class is definitely going to be the one to watch out for. And if you are in that LMP class, that's not what you want. You don't want to see that big of a discrepancy between two classes, because that means there are a whole lot more slower cars out on the track that you're going to have to be finding your way through, finding your speed. I was doing this yesterday with Sam, and I'm just going to keep it up. But no, it's going to be pretty impressive nonetheless, just to see how all these guys are able to get around the track. And what I did want to mention real quick, you can see Patrick Gannon there in 3rd place in the GT3. In the FindingSpeed League that I broadcasted yesterday, he actually won the race in that GT3 section, or the GT3 Pro Series over there. So he's definitely knows how to wheel this car around the track. So I think that is definitely going to be one to look out for today in the GT3 class.
The other thing drivers are going to have to think about is strategy. Now, we know the GT cars are very popular. Most people will know that they can run normally about an hour on most circuits, maybe just short or just longer than on different circuits. But the LMPs have to pit normally every sort of half hour to 40 minutes. So that is also going to mean that the drivers will come around and be lapped, and then all of a sudden the lead cars will be behind them again, and then trying to move forward.
David, do you want to know how impressive it is when I go and watch these endurance races? I'm going to continue to bring up the differences in speed here. Those LMP cars, like you just mentioned, about 30 to 40 minutes on a tank of gas, while these GT3s spend a full hour. Yet, those LMP cars will still be laps ahead of these GT3s, even though they have to pit maybe 2 more times. It's just, if that doesn't show you the difference in speed, and you'll start to see that as we get into this race here, that doesn't show you the difference in speed, I don't know what does. So it's all going to be driver awareness, to be honest, because these pit stops will come at different times. You're going to have cars rejoining the track at different times. It's just hang in there with us for about the first 30 minutes, and it will turn into a completely different race.
Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people will look at this and go, it's an endurance race. They're not going to fight early on. No, they will fight. They will use their heads, and endurance races are, especially sort of a 12-hour endurance race, which they're preparing for next week. They will be looking just to survive the first 11 hours, be in a position to fight. I always link it to sort of a NASCAR race where you've just got to get to the last 10 laps and be near the front and try and fight from there.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys, both Lewis and David, you guys are from different parts of the world than I am. And just because I'm American doesn't mean I like NASCAR. I want to put that out there right now. I like going both left and right. But at the same time, in an endurance race, even though this isn't technically an endurance race, it will be action-packed because these guys are still going to be fighting for track position. You don't ever want to get behind. And it looks like we do have our qualifying complete.
Yes, we do, and we'll just quickly run you through the grid of this Sebring Sunday community race on from FindingSpeeds.com. On pole position, we have Andrew Dawson from the United Kingdom, a 45.040 in the Lmp2 car from Daniel Civisabo for XZ Racing. Alan Cargett is in third place ahead of Jacob Behrens. Kichi Larson is in fifth from Jesse Elliott and Thomas Torp. So that is your LMP2s that have qualified. Eighth is Patrick Gannon in the GTs from Mark Fletcher and Daniel Kurowski. So that is your top 10. In 11th will be Hakan Gribstead for RPM Racing and Chris Tapio in a Mercedes. Will X is next up from Nathan Richardson. Roman Kubin is next up on the top Ferrari. 9th in class and 16th on the grid is Callum Puddicombe. From Christian Voltner, Brad Couch, Carl Gray, and Stefano Cucco is the second Ferrari in the line, 13th in class. Timothy Bray and Igor Bemak are next up from Martin Titoff, Darren Doherty, Dan Ozana, Tyler Campbell, Drew Becker, Ollie Morgan, Stephen Brown, 21st in class, but 29th on the grid, Christopher Courtney, Paul Joseph Clist, David Flanagan, and James Pugh round out the grid. And that is a full grid of 33 cars around Sebring, so plenty of traffic to deal with.
David, I just want to shout out here, mention, I promise you guys, I am looking at the YouTube chat here, and I don't know if Lewis may be able to expand on this a little more down there in the production booth, but there was a bit of an update to the overlay system that Apex uses this morning, so that could maybe be why the broadcast data isn't showing correctly, so apologies on that. It sounds like some of the teams are showing the wrong teams, but it was just... you know, it's when you get into software, there always could be some minor problems, but you know, if that's the worst thing that happens today, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, as you can see, the drivers are off on the parade lap at this moment in time. It is a thing we have at Sebring where the drivers have to do the whole parade lap. It gives us a little bit of a rest before we start, and that is always a good thing for us when we have 2.5 hours to talk over. But we will carry on telling you about this Sebring circuit. As you can see, the pace car just out in front there, the LMP2s catching up. They will start at the front, and the GT cars hanging back so they get a clean start to their race as well, because what you don't need is a load of LMP2s and GTs into that turn one at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to see what these guys are trying to avoid. You see these gaps starting to form is carnage. And especially with those LMPs starting where they are, they don't want to get involved in anything that could happen on lap 1, turn 1. I don't care what car you're in. It's always going to be a bit of a pucker moment, I would say, going into turn 1 on lap 1, no matter how long the race is. And I think that's what these guys are trying to avoid.
Yeah, you always have to be, when it's an endurance race, I mean, a lot of people will be used to sprint races on iRacing. These are completely different, especially community races. They're a lot cleaner. You don't get these, as MotoGP would put it, dive bomb Darrens in it. A little hint there to Darren Binder, but I think he did a great job today, but that's a different sport altogether. And here we are heading round, and you saw the tarmac change there. It goes from tarmac to concrete on the runoffs, and then the drivers come round onto this. You're looking now at the area that is part of the airport here, and these LMP2s will be taking off like a shot in no time as they head down towards Sunset Bend. Now the driver's just trying to get into line. If they're after a formation, they're not doing the best of jobs at the moment in time, but Andrew Dawson there on pole position and Daniel Civisarbo, they do have to wait for a pace car to go. There's the GT cars a little further back. You can see it's not the biggest of gaps, so if one of the LMP2s does have an issue in turn 1, he will have GT cars to try and get past at the start of this race. But the 6 LMP2s sitting at the front here, there's some more, another one 30 seconds back, so I think Becker is at the back of the GT field. But here we go, we're coming around for the start. The pace car pulls in, and we're about to start the FindingSpeed.com Sebring 2.5 hours, and we're away. And Andrew Dawson gets a jump off the start from Daniel Civisarbo and Andrew Gargett. So in they go to turn 1. Everybody getting through. Oh, that was close between Jared Bennett and Gargett, but everybody gets away. Oh, and there's a spinner there. That is Jacob Behrens.
Yeah, that was. I didn't see that one on screen. I just saw the Bennett starting to fall down the order there, but looks like we have Gannon. Remember, I mentioned him. He must have taken a few overtakes there, got himself up into first place. So pretty impressive by Gannon to get that done. But yeah, this is right now everything, for the most part, from what I've seen, has been pretty clean.
Yeah, it's been a clean start apart from that spin for Jacob Behrens, who managed to get going in front of this GT class, so it's not going to affect the GT field at this moment in time. You may see some of the LMP2s coming through later on, but here we go. Here's Chris Puddicombe in the Lamborghini in midfield, and we have side-by-side action between Bray and Campbell further back in the pack. And there's a Ferrari behind. Is that Doherty trying to squeeze his way through? You're not going to go 3 wide on the opening lap. Don't be silly. Goes to the inside, keeps it clean and manages to pull his way through. And look at this train of a collection of GT cars. We haven't really got one preferred option in here. There is a lot of Audis, but there's quite a few Ferraris. Only a couple of Lamborghinis, to be fair, and we even have a Mercedes up in second place, which is something we hardly ever see in the GT field.
Yeah, honestly, David, I kind of don't understand the hate on the Lamborghinis that I've just noticed this iRacing community tends to throw towards the Lambos. I believe they are one of the most, I think, the best all-around car, to be honest. I mean, I'm a Ferrari guy myself, and I know a lot of people don't like those as well. But no, I think the Lambo is going to do okay today. I mean, in those Mercedes, they're pretty tough to beat, especially you would assume around Sebring with the amount of power those things have. It's going to be pretty interesting. And the Audi, of course, is always going to be a pretty good car if you can tame it, along with the Porsches we know are newer to that iRacing service, and those things are a handful. So, I mean, just because you guys see all these different cars in this GT3 field, they all react differently, and it takes different driving styles to drive them all.
Exactly. The Ferrari is something which sorry, excuse me. The Ferrari is something that most people on iRacing already have, because it goes into a lot of different series. But the BMW used to be one of the well, the perfect car to have, the quickest car, maybe not the best in the corners, but the quickest car on iRacing. Lamborghini's had a huge push on the balance of performance in Series 1 of 2022, which put it in this position of being sort of a favourite car, but there's a lot of people who didn't want to use it because they felt it might be a little bit overpowered. As we now look back at the LMP2 field, Andrew Dawson and Daniel Sivisabo have streaked away at the front of his field, leaving Larson and Carget leaving in their wake, but this is going to be a battle all race long.
So, David, this is one thing, you may know a little bit more about this than I do, and I hope you do. How does the, I know in the GT3s, the dirty air doesn't really affect those GT3s as much, but these are a little bit more, I think, aero dependent, these LMP2s. Does dirty air tend to affect these cars anymore?
The dirty air certainly does affect the LMP2 cars. Unfortunately, I've never been good enough to jump into the LMP2 class, but I've done a lot of GT driving in the endurances with P2 cars coming past, and as a GT driver you have to be so careful when that LMP2 car comes past. You need your spotter in your ear going, remember the dirty air, because especially in the longer races you just forget about the dirty air and you just think it's a car in front, he's past me, I'll carry on driving as I do, because you get into this autopilot mode. But it's so easy, especially in the quicker corners, to be behind a P2 and just get dragged out wide, and you know, you lose loads of position, get your tyres dirty. As we can see, Sivisabo is really on the back of Dawson, but as you can see, that is showing that there is dirty air, but the slipstream when the two cars are alike is really important.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're going to kind of see, this is what I mentioned, so getting into Sunset here is going to be tough on the concrete. I mean, you can see them kind of bumping their way through the final corner, turn 17. And that's just, ooh, as Sivisabo gets a little bit wide there, seems to hold on to it. And we're going to see this, I think, as tires start to wear as well. You're going to see turn 17 and turn 1, even though turn 1 looks pretty easy, get way more treacherous.
Yeah, turn 1 and, well, Sunset, I think, is the worst. I say the worst corner, the most interesting corner on the Sebring circuit, because it is a corner that you can take so many different lines through. The LMP2s, you need a nice sweeping line to be able to get the run out the corner, so actually coming out wide leaves the door open on your inside for your opponent, whereas GT car, you might just want to keep it a bit tighter, a bit more tidier, because you're just always going to be that little bit slower through the apex of the corner. As we go on board with Sivisabo now, and hopefully we'll be able to be on board with him in the Sunset corner and show you the different lines that these cars will take. But you can also, this view shows you perfectly the changes in material on the road. We just saw a complete change on that apex alone, and then it changed back again to the tarmac, but you can see where cracks have been filled in, where lines have been painted over, even grass on the side of the track being brought on the opening lap. And as you can see there, the drivers come out off the racing track almost to get a better line through the corner, and that is just making the inside of that corner even dirtier with marbles and things like that. But as you can see now, we're going down into Sunset, it's very bumpy, change of surface, and you want to keep it nice and wide at the entrance to get tight on the apex, to use all this and a little bit more, as Dawson does in front, to get the run out the corner. But Sivisabo is just sitting there behind Dawson at the moment, and he goes for the inside of turn 1, and that is a beautiful textbook move by Sivisabo. He doesn't run too wide on exit, and up into the lead of the LMP2 class.
Yeah, that was a great move, and we just mentioned that is definitely an overtaking opportunity, as there are multiple different lines to take through that corner, but it just gets so tight on exit, and that's where these guys are really going to have to be careful. But that was very well done. Great respect, I think, that Dawson showed for Sivisabo. Let him go. You know, this is still a long race. This isn't just one of those hour-long races, as we're already seeing this GT3 pack get caught up by these LMP2s. What did you say, around lap 4 or 5? I think you were right on the money there, David. Oh, buddy, that's tight.
That was
tight.
That was very brave by Sivi Sabo, but this is the difference it makes. Look at the gap he's pulled out. 1 second on Dawson, who was right up behind him, because Dawson just had to take it carefully as they went past 2 of the GT cars. I'm just having a look at the timing screen to try and see who they are. I think it is Bembic. No, they've already passed Bembic, so it could be Becker and Doherty back there in the class. Sorry, Becker is a P2. No, he's down as a P2, but he's in a BMW, so something not quite right with the timing screen there. But you can see the P2's just carving through, and they have to decide. They've got the choice of deciding, really, when to pass these GT cars. It depends when you catch them, but you don't have to go, right, I have to do it now, because you're always going to have the extra speed on the next straight along. So, as I say, I don't know how much experience you have in terms of endurance racing, Adam, but it is something that these drivers really have to consider when they get to, say, next week's 12-hour event.
Yeah, I would say that this race is a very small indication of what you're going to see next week in the 12-hour event. I'm not saying that this race isn't hard, because this is a 2-hour race that these guys have already done quite a bit of practice in. They've gone through qualifying, and now they're in the race, as it looks like Dawson is going to make it past that Lamborghini there, but it's so tough to hold back. You know, as a racing driver, you don't want to, you know, hold back. Like, you're always wanting to make that pass. You're always gunning for that first place or that car ahead of you. But when it comes to endurance racing, you have to understand that, you know, one mistake, a couple mistakes may be okay, but if you make a mistake bad enough to damage your car or do something a bit, something that you wouldn't want to do, that damage can come into play, because you come into the pits and then you're all off pit sequence, and it's just, it could hurt you a lot more than I think maybe one of these quick races would, because it just, you can keep compiling issues as you're going, and the concentration's a whole nother thing. I mean, I've only been able to fit in a car for about 2 hours. You know, I did an endurance race with about 4 other guys, and it was at Sebring in the GTEs, actually. And I was only able to do about 2 hours before I started counting sheep, going over the moon. That was about as long as I could do it. So, props to these guys for getting in here on a Sunday just to run this race.
Yeah, it's something which the drivers really need to pick up on, concentration, and that's where fitness comes in as well. I mean, we see with the esports they go through rigorous fitness tests and fitness regimes, and you think you're sitting behind a wheel staring at a computer, why do you need fitness? But exactly like you say, you need to be able to concentrate for the whole stint, because one little mistake and your whole team could be out of the event, as we are now seeing the P2s coming through. That is Jacob Behrens passing Larson in the corner, and those two look like they probably are going to be teammates next week in the same team, the RPM racing team. Yes, they are similar teams, so we'll just see how this event goes. I think it was Alan Cargett just in front in the 31. Yes, it is. He's actually RPM racing. Jacob Behrens RPM racing, and Keshi Larson doesn't have a team next to him, but he's running the same livery, so we'll take that as you will.
Yeah, again, I believe that the team names may be a little bit askew from what they should be, so if we're throwing out team names and they're wrong, I apologize. I've already apologized in the YouTube chat, but anyways, I mean, we're about 13 minutes into this race, and I wanted to kind of expound on what you were talking about with the training regimens that these guys go through. And I'm telling you what, I would almost go as far to say that this may be a bit tougher mentally than it would be if you're racing real life, because you've got that physical aspect in real life that you're dealing with as well. Kind of takes your mind off of, you know, being mentally drained. These guys are, I mean, this is all a mental game for them, and it's just keeping that concentration, like we both now mentioned. That's going to be the toughest part, especially you start getting later on into this race. You've got GT3s all over the place, LMPs all over the place, and you're just trying to, you know, get around, and it's when it's going to become way more difficult than what we're seeing now. Right now, we're seeing some very good racing, not much contact, but I may expect that to change as these stages go on.
Yeah, you are exactly right. There's number 6, Behrens, taking every risk to get past that GT car just then. The Mercedes, they're being passed, so that will be Chris Tapio in the Mercedes, 11th in class at this moment in time. Like you say, I think the mental side of this is more difficult, and I do link it to the idea of going to the gym and being on an exercise bike. If you go on a normal bike, you go up a hill, you've got the wind, but you're not concentrating that much, but physically effort.
I apologize, David. Oh my goodness.
Oh, he's holding on around the outside. Behrens taking every risk possible to try and catch Carget at the moment, and around the outside as well. But Larson in the background, these guys taking big chunks out of the gaps for the GT cars, and if I was in the GT cars, I'd just be holding my breath a little bit when these guys are coming through. But that is an important thing for GT cars. At that stage, if you are now, you know whether that driver is going to take a risk or not. And as a team in a longer endurance race, I know this isn't actually driver swapping or anything, but in the 12 hours coming up, you will actually recognise a car and go, right, he was a bit tough coming past me this time. I'm going to give him more room, or I'll let him past a little bit earlier, and things like that. So they all come into account. And you can see Behrens was taking risks and was trying to close on Carget. Didn't manage to do that, and now has Larson all over the back of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what we're going to see. And we're only 15 minutes into this race. And you know, I told you guys to hang around and at least wait for the first round of pit stops on lap 30. Well, they already proved me wrong. This is already getting extremely intense, and we're only 15 minutes into this 2-hour race. With that being said, it is only a 2-hour race instead of a 12. So it's going to be more important to make the moves quickly. You can't be as patient. You know, like we were mentioning early, patience is a virtue, especially in these endurance races. And even though this is longer than a normal race you would see, it's still short enough to where you've got to start making moves when you see them. You cannot hang back and wait, because that may just be the gap that the guy ahead needed to take that lead or take that win.
Exactly. And going back to that in terms of the mental capacity, like this one is it's just as tough, because you know you've got to take position now, whereas next week you know you've got another 11 hours to go, or another 11 hours 40 to go.
Man, Behrens is doing everything he can right now to try to close this gap on Carget. It's just impressive. I mean, Carget has been getting through this traffic, it seems, way easier than Behrens has. So, I mean, this gap right now is holding about 2 seconds-ish. So, I mean, it's just, I do believe that Behrens does have the speed to catch Carget while he's on the without any traffic. But I believe Carget's getting through a little quicker, and Larson's catching Behrens there right on the back. But looking here at Sivi Sabo, about 1.5 seconds ahead of Dawson, and he's just out for a Sunday drive. No pun intended, I promise.
Yeah, but he's on a nice Sunday drive at the moment. Here is Daniel Sivisabo and Andrew Dawson out in front, and look at the clear space they have out on circuit. No need to concentrate on anything else but each other here. They've used just clipped that grass every time. You can see those two out in front, and then behind them is a gaggle of cars. They've got a while until they catch any more lap traffic as well. which will be the start of lapping everybody for a second time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got this track map pulled up that you can see, and you can, I mean, that you can tell by the time that they have definitely put a bit of a gap on the rest of the field here. But if you look at the track map, they are a easily full 3 corners ahead at this point, and they are still gapping even quicker. And they really don't have any GT3 cars ahead of him. 17th position up there, Chris Tapio. But he is a long way up the road, so that's probably going to be a battle for about a lap or so. So right now, again, just like you mentioned, focusing on nothing but themselves and each other. I mean, it's just, again, it's a long race, and anything can happen. You can even, we mentioned the lapse of concentration. You can lose concentration because there's nothing going on around you as well. But following on here with Patrick Gannon, who I did make a mistake earlier. When I checked the qualifying, he was 3rd place, and he must have taken that position to take pole in the GT3s, and he's out there just doing his own thing, about 1.3 seconds ahead of Grabstad.
Yeah, he's doing a great job in the GT class at this moment in time, and I know Håkan Grabstad is no slouch at all. We've seen him on Apex Racing TV many times before, so certainly no slouch whatsoever. He's pushing Gannon along. In 3rd place, we do have Nathan Richardson as well, who's driving very well in the Audi. So it's Audi, Porsche, Audi, Ferrari, Audi, Lamborghini, Audi. So an Audi looks like a good car to have around this circuit.
Yeah, it does, and I was wondering if it would, because this is one of those cars, again, maybe after the update things have changed a little bit, but one of the cars that I recognized as being a bit more on the difficult side to drive, but it is faster, I believe, overall, if you can handle it, if you can figure out how to drive the car. I mean, as you can see, Gannon making it look super easy. But it does tend to get a little bit twitchy on you.
Yeah, it is not the easiest car to drive, shall we say. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on as the race unfolds. In 4th place, we have Cuban and Will X in 5th place. Fletcher, Volkner and Chris Puddicombe rounding out the top 8 running so far. But it's sort of a 2-horse race in each of the groups at the moment in terms of... Sorry, must have a frog in the throat.
Yeah, no, I know what you're I know where you're getting at there. There is kind of like a bit of a gap here between the top 2 in both classes. But again, we're only 21 minutes in. So I mean, looking here at Mark Fletcher, lost 4 positions. I do believe there was a bit of contact at the beginning of the race for him, which may have put him back there. But it's better to have that done early than, you know, more towards the end of the race. So I think Mark's back there just starting to gain some time. Looking at his lap time, 58.996. That was his best lap, and it was his last lap. So he's starting to get the hang of this thing, I think, and I would expect him to be back up there quicker than we think.
We are now looking at Patrick Gannon, sorry, I don't know why I keep saying Paul. Patrick Gannon in the 666 Audi, pulling away slightly. The gap staying the same between him and Gribstad, but Richardson just dropping a slight bit back in 3rd place. So this GT pack, but you can see that is the top 6 in your shot as we look down the back straight from Sunset Bend. But Gannon is really pushing hard right now, and we are actually getting towards the stage of Lmp2 Pit Stops in the next sort of 10-15 minutes. Can't believe it's only been 22 minutes, to be honest, of this race. We're on lap 13 now, but the Lmp2s will be starting to pit, and when we get to the endurance race, Adam, in terms of the longer event, they'll really have to think about where they come out in traffic and whether it's worth just trying to go that extra lap to come out in a bit more space.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to think about what these guys are doing tonight compared to what they're going to be doing next week. This is going to give them a good gauge on tire wear, on fuel consumption, and all that good stuff. Wow, as Carriget, If somebody could correct me on how to pronounce that, that'd be awesome. But gets a little bit loose, but able to hold on to it. No, not really too much time lost. But anyways, back to the back to these pit stops. What they're not going to have to do are driver changes per se. And even though, again, this is a sim, driver changes can get a bit sketchy sometimes. I have seen, trying to get out of the car and get somebody else put into the car. It sometimes doesn't quite work out right. So that's just going to be something that they're not able to practice tonight. But, coming next week, it's going to get way more interesting with that, as we do have looks like our first pit stop in 20th position. What would that be? Anyways, it is our first pit stop, and it looks like maybe a GT3 as well. So, yep, that is definitely, that looks who that is. But anyways, we're going to continue here on the race for now. That was Tiejhoff. They're in 20th position. I don't know. I don't think that was a scheduled stop. But when it does come to this Lmp2, it looks like Carragher may have actually, he did crash. Uh-oh. And that was, he just lost third place because of that. It's going to be interesting to see what happened. Now, who knows? But anyways, here we go. Just gets wide trying to get around that Audi. Looks like he makes that move okay. Maybe under braking. He does. There. Yep, that'll do it for you. Just lost the rear end just a little bit. They locked up, but, David is... We've started to notice, I think, tire wear is going to start to become an issue as they get further and further onto these stints.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge issue, especially with the Lmp2 cars who will eat their tyres just that little bit more with pressure through the corners. The GT cars normally last hour or so. So it's really interesting to see how they get on with the tyre wear. With this abrasive surface, we've said it before, Sebring is not billiard table smooth. There is a lot of bumps, a lot of surface changes, and as you can see, the curbs are not that big, so you automatically, if you take a little bit too much, you're on the grass, you're on the dirt. You've got to bring your tyres back through, as Andrew Dawson is now 3 seconds behind Daniel Civisabo at the front of this race. We're watching Civisabo now just trying to make his way past the 12th placed GT car. And that was nicely done by Civisabo.
Yeah, he's doing everything he's got to do to maintain that gap, and he's not only maintaining that, he's actually extending that a little bit. When we looked, it was about 1.5 seconds last time, and he's up to 2.7 now. So he is doing a great job getting around this traffic super easily. What we haven't really seen is them, other than the beginning of the race, which was very close, as I think Civisabo split the middle of two of those GT3 cars, but now he's just kind of picking them off one at a time. There's not much racing going on up in front of him, so he's just able to keep running his lines and holding that gap.
Yeah, he's just going to hold that gap and try and keep that nicely for a pit stop, I think, because that just allows you maybe a little bit more fuel or a mistake or damage repairs or anything you might pick up on these circuits, especially with the bumps, as we said. You can you can easily pick up a bit of damage on the suspension or the under tray of the car.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a lot easier to do than you would expect with these, especially with these LMPs, as that is an LMP going around in the background. Gannon seems to make it through there without much damage, and he is still holding that gap pretty steady between him and Grebstad there in second place. I think, at this point, we've seen a couple LMPs go around, and this is when, tires are starting to wear just a little bit. You're getting pretty light on fuel. It's getting pretty close to your time to come into the pits and for that pit window. So I think some of these LMP drivers are just starting to feel the effects of that quite a bit. But these GT3s will still be trucking along for another 30 minutes or so, and we're going to see exactly what happened. Looks like Jesse Elliott was the one that was the unfortunate one there. I think he probably just got on the brakes a little heavy. I think he caught Gannon a little quicker than he thought he was going to.
Yeah, caught him up just a little bit too quickly there, and was a bit surprised by that. But as we said, not really too much of an issue over top, you know, because we got 2 cars round in the background. I'm just trying to work out who they are.
It's looking like Andrew Dawson, I see, came off track and went back on. That may be...
That could very much be him.
Did he catch a little bit of current? Oh! Yikes. I was talking about this at the beginning of the race. It's just when it as that rejoin got pretty sketchy, but no, you just got to be super careful around these GT3 cars, and I really don't think that was any fault on anybody. He just caught that GT3 way quicker than I think they were expecting, and you know, you can't hit brakes mid-corner. That's when it causes spins, so it's unfortunate for Dawson, but I don't think he caught too much damage. I do think, though, David, that, I don't know, those LMPs probably aren't as tough as these GT3s are. These GT3s can take quite a beating.
Yeah, it's something that you really have to take into account when you're driving the LMP2s. You've got to try and keep off the curbs. You've got to try and keep damage to a minimum because they're so aero-dependent in terms of how they are driven. As you can see currently, Sabo charging through all the back markers, coming up behind 3rd and 4th place in class.
You know what I really haven't mentioned? We just saw Sabo get around Gremstad there, who's 2nd in class for the GT3s. It's not just these LMP drivers that have to find a way through. These GT3 drivers are looking for a place to allow these LMP drivers to get through safely, if that makes sense, because these GT3 drivers don't want to lose any time either. This isn't just an LMP2 race. So I promise you, when we see some of these contacts and these incidents, these GT3 drivers aren't happy either. It's not like they were trying to get in the way of the LMP2. It's just the closing rate sometimes. There is no good way to get around. But following on board here with Barons, still 3rd place. That gap between him and the leader, Sabo, about 26 seconds at the moment. About 30 minutes into this race, I'm surprised we haven't really seen more pit stops. You know, for these LMPs, they must still be going pretty strong. We haven't even seen an early stop from anybody. So we may be going on here to about 40 minutes into this race before we see anything. We've got Gannon here trying to allow that LMP through, and he does very nicely indeed. But look at what that's done to this gap. Gremstad now has gained about 2.5, maybe 0.3 of a second just in that little exchange where Gannon was trying to allow that LMP through. So again, this isn't just an issue for those LMPs, it's an issue for those GT3s as well. But again, still moving on, still doing what they've got to do here. And man, that battle or that gap between 1 and 2 and the rest of the field in that GT3s is still pretty impressive. We got Will X here, hasn't gained or lost any positions, just doing his own thing. Still pretty close here to Fletcher, so I wouldn't count him out at anything yet. Again, Fletcher was one of those involved in the earlier incidents that we saw, but I think that these guys are probably going to be working back up the field together. And then, I mean, from 4th, 5th, 6th place here for those GT3 classes, it is a lot closer than the rest of the field that you can see on your timing tower right now. And we do have our first pit stop. That would be Jesse Elliott right now in 5th place in the LMPs. We may hold on to that 5th place, and we're going to kind of see here if we can how long that pit stop's going to be. And it's going to be a good indication of you can still see him in there in the pits right now as Will gets by or drives on through down into turn 1. Elliott's still sitting there in the pits, so I mean you can see how this is going to be quite a bit of a quite long of a stop. And while we're on Tyler Campbell, I actually know Tyler pretty well. I run a league here that's also broadcast on Apex, and Tyler's done quite a bit for us there in the league in XSLR. He's a pretty cool guy, and he knows his stuff. He knows his way around a GT3 car. Will give out hints and tips and does driving coaching and all that stuff. So it's great to see Tyler out here, and he's 10 positions up from where he started. I don't think he's one that qualified, and if he did, I don't think he qualified very well. And he's in a Ferrari, which is also different. Normally, I'll see him in an Audi. So maybe Tyler's learning something a little bit, learning a little more, and he just hasn't let me onto that secret yet.
Yeah, Tyler Campbell doing a great job of coming through the field at the moment. There is a few movers at the moment. Jesse Elliott up 28 places. He didn't qualify in the LMP2 class, so a bit of a false storm there because he was going to pass all the GT cars anyway. If he didn't in an LMP2, I'd be mightily surprised. But we've got Tyler Campbell up 11 places, Ollie Morgan and Stephen Brown also up 11 places, and Paul Joseph Kliss up 11 places, whereas the biggest loser has been Daniel Kroski, who has lost 16 places and is running at the back after an incident early on. We're now looking at Timothy Bray about to try and make a move on Stephen Brown. The Ferrari against the Audi, and like we said before, the Audi not the easiest car to sort of get on top of, whereas the Ferrari is a car which most people on iRacing have driven, and it's a nice, I always call it the safe option.
Yeah, it definitely is. I know the Ferrari has its quirks as well. People call it underpowered sometimes, kind of the back end does kind of want to swap ins a little bit if you're not careful with it. But all in all, I think it is definitely, for me, the most fun car to drive, and that's also because I don't spend as much time driving on the sim as I should. But man, look at this. This is impressive. Timothy's doing everything he can. Look at that Ferrari actually pulling a bit of a gap down the straights. I wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, the Audi is not always known as the quickest car. It does look kind of aerodynamic, but I always liken it to a Beetle in terms of aerodynamics compared to some of the cars, especially with Lamborghini. We did see Chris Puddicombe come into the pits. He's rejoined in 12th place.
Yep, but there's still... now, again, I think that may have been a bit of an earlier pit stop for Chris, but these guys are all just trying to figure out their bearings, get their wits about them, and kind of get some practice here for next week for the race. So I would assume that maybe he's just trying a little something, a little something different. And, I mean, heck, I may get proved wrong, and he may come up and win the race. Who knows? That's why I'm up here and not down there. But still following this battle here with Stephen Brown and Tyler Bray, or Timothy Bray, I apologize. This is impressive. Stephen's moved up 7 positions from the start, and Bray is down 1. So, yeah, I think Bray is probably wanting to get back around him as quick as he can. And here we go, about 36 minutes into the race, I think we're going to start seeing the LMP2s peel off for the pits.
Yeah, Jacob Evans and Ketchit Larson have headed to the pit lane, and those P2s, as we said, 30 to 40 minutes depending on the fuel level and the tyre wear. And while we've been talking, Sivi Sabo is now 14 seconds clear of Dawson. Obviously Dawson got a bit caught up in that incident, but certainly hasn't got the gap closed down anything like how he would want to, ready for pit stops. And they will probably be pitting in the next 2 or 3 laps, I suspect, where you won't see the GTs to do a scheduled stop until about the hour mark. As you can see, Sivi Sabo now coming up on this battle between Brown and Bray unable to use the slipstream to get past Brown again. That Ferrari going very nicely in the class, but here is Sivi Sabo, and will he peel in?
I would expect him to peel in here. Yes, he does. I mean, I know he's probably running pretty low on fuel anyways, but he's also coming up onto a GT3 battle, which he doesn't want to be a part of, if at all possible. And this is Dawson, who I believe, like we said, had a bit of an issue there at the beginning of the race, and he's going to peel in as well. So the top 2 are now in, so Sivi Sabo is going to be able to hold that lead.
Now, one thing the drivers do need to remember is they do have one fast repair in this event, which they won't have next week. But in this event, they do have one fast repair. So when you're coming in and you've got no damage, you've got to remember to turn this off. before you pit, or you lose that fast repair. And it is a bit of a tactic of when to use the fast repair, because when you get to these endurance races, you may decide to use it on your first pit stop, but then you won't have it anymore, and you could need it later on for a bigger kind of accident. And I am talking from experience here, where I have used it too early before, for a little bit of damage because I was losing straight line speed, but then you have a bigger accident later and you regret that you used it.
David, I have had countless moments where I've been in league races and in first place, let's say, and I make a mistake or something after a pit stop, and I'm like, oh, I've got a fast... Oh, no, I don't. I used it on my first stop. So then you're out of the race, basically. You've got required repairs, optional repairs, all this stuff that you have to deal with. So it is definitely a strategy game. Obviously, if you smoke a wall or something like that, you're going to have to take it. But look at the closing speed. Sibi Sabo just right around Grebstad. Unbelievable. I mean, it's just crazy how much quicker those LMPs are. But anyways, yeah, so the fast repair thing is going to be definitely a bit of a tactic. And looking here, I mean, Grebstad and Gannon seem to be probably one of the cleaner cars out here right now in that GT3 portion, so I don't think that they're going to be using that fast repair unless they forget to turn it off. And again, if you get into a problem later on, then you don't have it. So yeah, I mean, that basically explains fast repairs and our inability to use them correctly, David.
Yeah, as I always say, if you can race, race. If you can't race, talk about it. So that's why we're up here and they're down there. So we've got this interesting portion of the race where the GT cars will start now heading towards their pit stops, and the P2 cars, and as we have Hack and Grimstead already in the pits, seems a little bit early for me. But also Cannon's coming in as... Is that Cannon? No, that's Richardson, Fletcher, Cuban and Will X all heading the pit lane. So scrap that hour mark. Patrick Gannon carries on, but the rest of the top 6, top 7 all pit this time round.
So let me ask you something here as we're watching these GT3 cars come in. Tires aren't really that big of a deal in a 1-hour race. They will be definitely in a 12-hour race. Is it going to be as big of a deal here in a 2-hour race?
No, I think considering these drivers are pretty much, they're taking part in this race and wanting to win this race, but it's a lot of preparation towards next week. They'll probably try and double stint the tyres and maybe even triple stint them to the end of the race if they do need to pit again, because in a 12-hour event you'll be looking at doing that. You'll be looking at running their tyres really long, so you probably will give it a go just to see how it feels. But in terms of a racing perspective, if you were just looking to try and win this race, it really depends on your speed, because you're adding an extra 20 minutes to your pit. 20 minutes? You really do not have a very quick pit stop. 20 seconds to your pit stop.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's kind of what I was wondering here. You know, if I was in their position, I think a lot of these guys are trying to practice. And me, which is why I'm up here and not down there, I just want to win the race. So I probably really wouldn't try to be practicing as much for the 12 hours as I should be, because I just want to win the darn race at hand. So that is a great insight that I honestly didn't even think about until you brought it up, David. So thank you for making me look a bit, dense, I guess would be the word. But no, this is going to be interesting to see how these guys do go on with those older tires at the end of that race. And I mean, I hope they do practice, and it looks like most of them are practicing a double stint, or a double tire stint, a single tire double stint race. So there is Gannon. So yeah, I thought that may have just been an early box for some of those guys, but no, Gannon now in the pits as well. So that is about the time it looks like that these GT3s are going to need.
Yeah, it may be a bit earlier around this Sebring circuit as Tapio heads to pit lane as well. So the gap between Gribstad and Gannon was 55 seconds. Let's see how long Gannon's pit stop will be and see if Gribstad can close any of that gap down. The thing that extends it in endurance racing, and it's something that my I'll say team manager. When I do endurance races, we let him believe he's team manager. As Cannon's coming out of the pits, we'll just go back to that in a minute. Gannon comes out, goes round the cones, and will retake the lead of the class if he can keep it in a straight line. But Grimstad is well up to speed and has brought Ollie Morgan with him. Ollie Morgan come from absolutely nowhere in this race.
Yeah, where did he come from?
21 positions that Ollie Morgan has closed in this race so far. So he's gained 10 positions since I last went through. What a stint and a half that is by Ollie Morgan.
I just, while you were talking, I wanted to cut you off so bad because all of a sudden I see this.
He hasn't pitted.
That makes a whole lot more sense. I was about to be mind blown and wonder why Ollie Morgan is here on a sim and not out racing GT3s in real life, why he wasn't there this weekend at Sebring. But no, super impressive anyways that Ollie Morgan, and he's still on that first stint. We've seen a lot of these guys coming in already, and Ollie's still out there, not only, driving around, he's really putting some pressure on Grebstad, who has pitted already.
Yeah, well, Ollie Morgan will just be trying to push himself up the road as quickly as he can, and it's something that comes up in the 24 and 12-hour races. That extra lap you might need to save fuel. Now, for example, with some of the stints, you look at it and you go, there is a stint length, and that will get us to the end of the race. But depending where the white flag comes out and how quick the leaders are, you might need an extra lap of fuel that you didn't put into account. This is where being able to do this extra lap, or extra 2 laps in the case of Ollie Morgan, so he's going very quickly and saving fuel. His lap times are not shabby at all. 159.3 last time by, keeping up with Hacken Grimstead to the 10th of a second. This speed and fuel saving at the same time, put them together into an endurance race, and it is pretty much the perfect strategy, because you can go that little bit longer, and if you can do 2, maybe 3 laps before pit stop each time, you can get a stint length out of 12 hours.
So I have been corrected once again in the YouTube chat. Thank you, Robert. It is a 75% fuel window for these, at least the GT3s. And if I'm reading through what I have gotten information for, it's not just showing 75% fuel limit for the GT3s. That is for the Lmps as well. So it's weird that the Lmps came in around the time that they were supposed to. But the GT3s came in a little earlier, but that's neither here nor there. Still watching this battle between Morgan and Grebstad, who has still yet to pit. Lighter fuel load probably playing a factor here, that Morgan's able to stay on the back of Grebstad. But you wonder how much potential pace Morgan has right now, and he's stuck behind Grebstad. Or, like you mentioned, that may be where he wants to be. Just getting a bit of that draft help, that slipstream, trying to get a few more laps. Ooh, got a little wider, I think, Grebstad than he wanted to, but maybe a few more laps than he would have if he was out in clear air. So, I mean, this could play a factor at the end of the race. Morgan now 46 minutes into this race and about 10, probably 12 minutes ahead of, as Morgan gets just a little close to that wall on the inside there coming through Sunset, and he goes around again.
Yeah, very interesting tactic by Ollie Morgan here to try and stretch this out, but his pace is there to be able to do so. And yeah, the drivers do have 75% tank capacity. I did forget to add that, which means to me the T2 cars came in around when I expected. Anyway, with 100% tank, so they did pretty well on their fuel mileage. But I still think the GT cars came in a little bit early for what I was personally expecting and what my experience is around Sebring. So it'd be interesting to see how that sort of equates into a race next week around the same circuit, but obviously possibly different weather conditions. Luckily, iRacing haven't just randomly decided to throw their new rain system into these races.
Don't even get me started on that.
Well,
anyways,
I did joke about it coming up in the middle of the Nürburgring 24-hour.
Yeah, that'd be. I apologize for all the drivers in that race if iRacing decides to throw that bit of throw a wrench into things, because there would be a lot of wrenches being turned on a lot of the cars if that did happen. But yeah, the rain thing. That's definitely gonna. That's an interesting move there by iRacing. So can't wait to see how that causes, or what kind of chaos that causes in some of these lobbies.
I do believe they were hoping to bring it in this season, so we might have seen it in the Sebring race, but the plan is for maybe next year now to make sure they get it right, and that's something iRacing always do. They try and make sure they get it right before they release something, and that's why we get all these updates. Sorry.
Speaking of getting it right, I just watched Sivi Sabo drive around the outside of 2 GT3 cars through Sunset. If that's not getting it right, I don't know what is, and that is a whole lot of trust in Gannon and Grebstad, who are first and second right now in that GT3 portion. But unbelievable by Sivi Sabo to make that move, and I mean, that just goes to show why right now he's winning the race. He's I may upset a couple people here, but that's a bit Max Verstappen-esque, just making moves that a lot of people wouldn't, and it's working out for him at the moment. So yeah, it's great by Sivi Sabo, able to get that car around those two and move on. 16-second gap now. He didn't really even lose any time to Dawson by doing that. So that just shows you the pace Sivi Sabo has.
Exactly. We've got a replay coming up now, and this is looking at Roman Kubin heading down towards the hairpin. I guess it's just outbraking himself. Yes, it is. Just across the bumps, the car. Oh, and a little touch there by the Audi that was behind him. I think that may have been Timothy Bray.
That could have been way worse. Whoever that Lmp was back there too came in at a rate of knot and was able to get that thing slowed down in time. But I've seen it's not just been. Oh, that was Jesse Elliott. That was Jesse Elliott who, man, he was coming in again very quickly on these cars. Arrived at the scene of the crash, and man, that was a great defensive move. Oh my goodness, the 46. Who was that gets through there as well? But. Yeah, Larson. So that was great defensive driving there between those two. But yeah, what I was gonna say, I've been seeing lose. I saw a couple of LMPs lose it through the hairpin. My goodness gracious, Sivi Sabo is on a roll right now. But I've watched a couple of LMPs lose it through that hairpin. But that's the first GT3 I've seen lose it down in there.
Yeah, it's comes with the new code word in Formula 1 at the moment, porpoising. As they come across the bumps down the hill, you'll see it on Sivi Sabo's car just there, just as they're trying to apply the brakes, and it just lifts the car up, and the brakes don't work as well, and then you carry too much speed in, and the rear end comes around. But Sivi Sabo managed to get through the corner absolutely fine, and that's why it's so easy to miss your braking point in that hairpin. The bumps just throw you off course, and you're just not in a position to take that to a right speed into the corner, shall we say. But just having a quick look, we're 52 minutes into this race on lap 29, so just a quick rundown of your classes, or at least your class top 5. Daniel Sivi Sabo is leading the race by 16 seconds from Andrew Dawson. In third place is Ketchit Larson in the 46, ahead of Jakob Behrens, who we've seen having a few wild moments here, and he's still in this battle with Jesse Elliott just up behind him, but he is a lap down on this field right now.
David, do you mind? We can do top 5 in LMP2s, but why don't we go ahead and do top 5 in the GT3s, because I all of a sudden see Grebstad right on the back of Gannon. Came out of nowhere again. I think this battle is starting to heat up. Grebstad's tired of staying behind him.
Yeah, Grebstad has decided enough is enough. I want the lead of his GT class. So it is Gannon, Gribstad, Fletcher, Volkner and Campbell, with Willex just outside fighting Campbell all the way at this moment. So Campbell is on a good run, but here is the battle for the lead. It is 0.2 of a second between Gribstad and Gannon.
Yeah, that Porsche, it looks like he's able to get through the middle of the corner just a little better right now than Gannon is. That's where he's making it through mid-corner on corner exit, but that Audi is just able to keep the gap just far enough down the straights, at least what we saw through the last, down the Ullman straight through the last lap. It looks like Gannon was able just to pull that just a little bit, but Gribstad still closing. And that Audi just seems that now Gribstad closing a little more. This is going to be where we saw some issues for some of these guys through this hairpin. Able to get it done right there. Okay, so yeah, this is going to continue down to the Ullman straight. And this is probably going to be the best overtaking opportunity for Gribstad at this point into turn 17 in the Sunset Bend. But as we mentioned, it gets pretty bumpy down there too. So yeah, I'm already scared because I think I can see what's coming.
Yeah, it is really close battle. We have replay coming up on the screen. It's Larson, third place in P2. Just coming up behind one. Oh, it's a Mercedes he's coming up behind. And just, oh, that is an unusual one.
It looks like the rears were just locked up right there. What second he let off the brakes, he got back going again.
Yeah, very strange off there for Larson. That's something he will learn ready for next week that he doesn't want to do, but that has allowed Jakob Behrens up into third place in the class. As we look back at this GT3 battle, which is raging on, it's been going since the start, maybe about 2 seconds between them all overall in the race. But we're back up to half a second now by Cannon, but that closes in this fast section of the circuit where Gribstad can use the slipstream and move his Porsche closer to the rear of that Audi.
Yeah, Gribstad just seems to be able to catch Gannon through this middle portion of this track. You know, you go through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into 7 where the hairpin is, and that's where Gribstad's able to get a little closer, and then towards the back part of the track through Le Mans, he just seems like Gannon's able to pull that gap. And there, you can see Gribstad maybe fighting with a little bit of front end damage, and you wonder how much that is actually affecting his aero when he has to stay. I mean, staying in that slipstream is an okay thing, but the second he pops out or loses a little bit of that momentum on Gannon, he just you wonder how much that actually is affecting him.
Yeah, it could be affecting him a little bit, but Gribstad really pushing on. We go on board with the Porsche driver now. This is a great view of what they see in the race. Just missing that little curve. It's like it's a curve which is there to help you round, but you don't want to be hitting it because you will bounce off it as we go onto the airstrip. So much runoff, but none of it that you want to use.
This corner right here, what they're coming through here, technically Le Mans, and I know there's another corner name that I do not pronounce through there, so I'm not even going to try. I mess that up every time because you expect that corner to be much wider than it actually is. It's deceiving. All that concrete all over the place, and then all of a sudden you see curbs on the left-hand side, and I have gotten way too many slowdowns coming through there onto Ullman Straight and then into Sunset.
Yeah, I've mentioned it many times in my events where you just want to throw the car in a little bit more than it will take, and through that corner, like you say, you come round and it looks like, oh, it'll just open up, and all of a sudden it just gets tighter and tighter. In a rally game, it would be the corner speed of 2 and Titans. And you might actually know what was going on, but in here you don't have that co-driver, and it's so easy. Even though you know the circuit, you've been round it 32 times now, you get there and you just end up taking more speed and getting it wrong again.
And this is what I mentioned about the complacency and the loss of concentration in these longer races. I'm putting my hand up right now. I know you guys can't see it, but I am probably one of the worst people that you want to have driving on your team if I've been driving from over an hour. And I remember at Sebring in that GTE, I locked up into that corner so many times. I mean, I probably had, if iRacing would have tallied how many slowdowns, the amount of seconds I had in slowdowns, I probably had more time in slowdowns than I did have time in the car, to be honest. But no, this is great racing here, and as we see, they're trying to lap. Who is that lap card? Can't see the number on that.
It's one of the Audis, which we
But
have.
Grebstad, that has helped. He's now there. So this is going to be, I think this is going to be Grebstad's opportunity once they get back on here into the Almond Straight. It's maybe where Grebstad's going to have the chance if he can. I don't think we're going to see a dive bomb here yet. It's going to have to be clean. And look, he just loses more time on corner exit into the Almond Straight.
Yeah, the Porsche's never been world-renowned for its straight-line speed. It's very good in the corners, but Gannon just felt the need to go at half a car towards the inside just to wade off any advance by Grebstad. As we can see, Jakob Behrens bearing down on them in the P2 class.
I see what you did there, David. That was a very, very funny. But this is not what they want to see. They do not want to see an Lmp2 right now, and that Lmp2 does not want to see these two guys battling in front of them, as it looks like Behrens is going to try to make a move down the inside, and this is going to give Grebstad another chance. Woo-hoo-hoo! Okay,
Yeah.
we're good. All clear. Heart rate.
That was the right idea by Jakob Behrens, just to get out of the way as quickly as he could and do them both into one corner. It allowed the battle to continue, but Grebstad having a slipstream down into the hairpin. But I just don't think Grebstad is ready to make the move. I think he's happy sitting here.
I mean, he might as well be. All right, my American's going to come out a little bit. He might as well be bump drafting Gannon at this point, down through some of these straightaways. So the fact that he hasn't tried to pull out, and like I mentioned, maybe he knows he can't. Maybe he's just going to have to stick on the back of Gannon all the way down and then pull out super late to try to make a lunge down the inside to make that pass. But then Gannon's just, with the way that this track is set up, after a lot of these tight corners, there are some very long straightaways, and you can tell Gannon's just got the straightaway speed.
Yeah, he's managed to pull out half a second in this lap just to pull away from Grebstad. But Grebstad is no slouch. And these two are 6.5 seconds ahead of Mark Fletcher in third place. And Christian Faulkner will X and Tyler Campbell round out the top 6 in the class so far.
Yeah, you remember I mentioned Tyler Campbell up 10 positions the last time we switched over to him. He is now up 15 positions overall and 13 in class. So that guy, I don't think he's done yet. I think he's got more to gain. We're only an hour into this race, so it's going to be kind of keep your eye on Tyler here. See if he can make any more moves. If he's already made that many, I don't think he's out of this race yet by any chance, by any shot.
No, he's currently 41 seconds off the lead of Patrick Gannon. His lap times are quick, but are they quick enough? Probably not at this moment in time, but we'll see. The race may come to him a little later on. Back at the front of the P2 class, just to let you know, Simucube still sits there with a 16-second lead over Andrew Dawson. So no closing of that gap since Dawson's little excursion at the end of the back straight.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. You know, Dawson is kicking himself right now. If this was a 12-hour race, like we mentioned, you've got a lot more time for Dawson to be able to make that gap back up, and there's also more time for. It wouldn't be Simucube the whole race unless he's absolutely mental to drive 12 hours at the same time. And you technically get DQ'd if you do that anyways in iRacing's endurance races, but. If this was a longer race, Simucube, there's definitely more of an opportunity for Simucube to make a mistake. But right now, I don't think this guy has put a foot wrong. And speaking of not putting a foot wrong, I cannot believe these guys are still racing as close as they are without coming together. And I hope I didn't just commentator curse them.
Yeah, Grebstad is doing a good job just hanging the Gannon at the moment. I think he's very much made the opinion of the same intending. He decided that if he can't pass Gannon and pull away,
definitely see that he has the pace. And I mean, obviously, we're not in his head. We can't hear driver comms or anything like that on stream, so we don't quite know what exactly is going on, why Grebstad is doing this. And you know, I think at this point he has the pace to stay this close to Gannon. I think he's probably got the pace to get around him at this point. Like you said, he may just be like a cat playing with a mouse, you know, just kind of seeing and maybe kind of feeling where Gannon is making his defensive moves as Grebstad gets a little closer to try to see maybe where later on in the race, as long as no mistakes happen. Look at the rear brakes just blowing away on that Porsche. But anyways, yeah, just trying to see maybe where he's going to, when the overtaking opportunity comes, when he's going to be able to do it. And you have to think if Gannon or if Grebstad is staying this close to Gannon at this point, when he comes in for that quick repair, what little damage Grebstad has, he's going to be able to fix, which is not going to hurt his case at all. But moving on here, I guess we really haven't talked that much. We've been watching this battle the whole time because that's the only battle going on right now that I can kind of see in the gaps. We got 10th place here. Brat Crouch, he's up 1 position in his Audi. Yeah, so this is a bit of a battle up here for Stefano Coco as well as Nathan Richardson. So this is still pretty close as well, and this is kind of the same thing that we were talking about there at 1 and 2, David. They're just kind of riding around behind each other at this moment.
Yeah, exactly. And a point I was going to make before I started coughing fit and then realised I was muted anyway. It's a position where you have a 2-hour race. You don't need to lead any lap apart from the last one. And I was going to say you only need to lead like 1 hour 50. You don't need to lead for 1 hour 59 and how many seconds, but actually because of the extra lap it might go a bit longer than that. So you only need to lead the final lap as you cross the line, as some drivers may have found out. Spoiler alert.
Oh, easy. I know where you're going with this.
So it's all about just we'll leave that there, but it's all about just making sure that you are in a position, like we said at the start of this race, the first hour and a half doesn't matter. Keep yourself in contention, keep yourself clean, and get your pit stops right and your tactics right. And then in the final half of the race, push like hell. That was something that happens in racing generally, in terms of endurance racing, but these days it is a lot more about pushing every single lap. You know, you watch the World Endurance Championship, for example, even in the esports GT races, it's about pushing every lap to the limit. Nowadays it's almost like, dare I say it, in 24-hour races, a 24-hour sprint, which sounds crazy, but it is actually that in terms of the lap times you need to set to try and win the event.
I don't think I'm going to spoil anything when I say that the Daytona 24-hour race really opened my eyes to that. That is the first real endurance race that I got the chance to sit down and watch. I'm talking about the real-life Daytona 24-hour that went on last month. But, I mean, you could just, there was never, throughout the night, throughout the day, there was never any dull moments. You could just hear it in the drivers' voices over the radio that they were constantly pushing and constantly irritated and just going for broke the whole time. It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, we talked about conditioning earlier. Just amazing to me. I mean, and that happens in the sim world too right now. I mean, and speaking of conditioning, these two, I mean, the gaps that these two have been able to keep, I mean, the conditioning for Grebstad to be able to sit behind Gannon without making, I'm just not going to say anything anymore.
Yeah, don't say anything anymore, because Grebstad ran a little bit wide out there on the run to the hairpin and picked up a little bit on his tyres. That's going to take just a couple of corners to wear off, as you see the brakes glowing on the Porsche. But he seems to have the pace to close that gap back up, and he still hasn't lost the slipstream. Well, back up front, Andrew Dawson is bringing that gap down. I don't know what has happened to Sivi Sabo, but the gap has dropped by 2 seconds in the last lap or two.
Well, if I'm in Sivi Sabo's case right now, maybe he is fuel saving. You know, he sees that gap right now. And he's like, maybe I'll just, you know, lift a little bit before corner entry and get on the gas a little smoother, not use the brakes as much, sort of things like that, to try to see how long he can make this stint last. Because at this point, they're thinking about pit stops again. And you wonder if Sivi Sabo can find a way to save as much fuel as possible on this stint, he may only have to stop one more time. That is a huge ask. I understand. Please don't kill me in the chat. But huge ask for him to be able to do. But you wonder maybe there's something to be said about that. But as I say that, he's back up to 15 seconds. I don't even know why I'm saying anything anymore, to be honest.
As commentators, we never do. But 35 minutes, I think it was, that the P2s pitted the last time around. So adding that on, they will be due in for a pit stop in the next lap or so. So we'll just see how these pit stops will get on. Will Dawson be able to close any MGTs? They will be looking for pit stops around, I think they'll have about one more to go at around the 1 hour 30, 1 hour 40 mark, a little splash to the end of this 2-hour event.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be, I think some of the tactics are really going to start coming into play as these guys have been able, depending on how much fuel some of these guys are going to be able to save. And we did see Sivi Sabo come in a little later, a couple laps later than everybody else, which means he's probably going to fill it all the way up one more time. But he's going to fill it up maybe later than everybody else. And then he's not going to have to fill as much up at the end of the race, so he's going to be able to get in and out a little quicker than some of these guys behind him.
Yeah, fingers crossed for himself and not for his rivals. Just looking in the GT class, Will X. Oh, that's very wide by Sivi Sabo, but Cannon is still leading by 1.5 seconds now by Gripstad. He's been shook a little bit by that slight mistake. Will X has got past Campbell into the top 5. Tapio and Richardson still round out the top 8. But before the pit stops begin, we just have to say very thanks to our second sponsor of the night, Apex Racing Academy. Apex Racing Academy is part of the Apex Racing team, and they have 29 data packs available, setups, track guides, integrated with a virtual racing school, weekly coaching sessions, and much more. You can head to apexracingacademy.com .co.uk for a bit more information on that. And I can tell you now, I use that and it is brilliant for the setups, and I find each setup right on cue for what I need for a particular race.
Yeah, no, I use Apex quite a bit as well. They do a great job with setups. That's what I use for my GT3s, and let me tell you what, if a guy like me who can't really do that well, I think I'm one of those guys that think I can drive better than I actually can, and at least I can admit that. But no, their setups are really spot on. The customer support and everything, they do a great job all around, and yeah, a huge shout out to Apex for sure. But following on here again with Grebstad, like you mentioned, that one mistake he made shook him from Gannon, but he's losing a little bit more time. You can see his last lap was 59.503 compared to Gannon's when his was pulled up. Yeah, there it is right there. So, yeah, lost. He's in the 59s while Gannon's still holding steady kind of there in the 58s.
Yeah, it is a position where Gribstad is just losing a bit of time. As I say, I think he just ran wide, and it just spooks you a little bit for a few laps until you get things back on track. But he's still close enough to close that gap. Behind you can see Mark Fletcher closing in that Lamborghini. He is actually not too far away, less than 5 seconds back now. There they are, all in the same picture. And he was a lot further back when he came out of pits last time by. So Fletcher setting 158.82 last time, so he actually took almost a second out of a lead too.
Wow,
So
that's what Mark Fletcher's car looks like. I didn't even realize we had a Mark Fletcher in this race because he has been by himself most of the race. And I promise you, Mark, that is a good thing. I mention this in every stream when people don't get covered. If you're not doing anything wrong, you probably aren't going to get covered that much. And a lot of times, it's a good thing to have a boring race. He's sitting here third in class right now, at the moment having a boring race. But as you mentioned, I don't think he wants it to be boring. And the way he's pushing that Lamborghini right now, I think he may not be boring for too much longer.
Yeah, he's closing in on Hackman Grimstead as quickly as he can. Say taking about 3/4 of a second out of the lead two on the last lap. Another driver well on the move is Will X, 5th in class, 10th overall. He's closing in on Christian Faulkner by by about half a second a lap, and he is being followed by Tyler Campbell, who did a 59.45, his best lap of the race last time around, and he's only 5 seconds off the back of that pack. So 4th, 5th, 6th is all closing together, as well as 1st, 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, I think track conditions may be changing just a little bit. I'm probably allowing these drivers to go just a little quicker as we see Larson there in the pits for his second stop, which is around about the time that we would expect these LMPs to come in. But anyways, yeah, this is Faulkner right now. We haven't really covered him that much either. I saw him yesterday in the Finding Speed League, the GT3s that ran around here, and again, he's no slouch, so doing a great job up there in 4th place at the moment. But I mean, that last lap of 2 minutes is that's a bit off the pace, and you can tell that Will X he's coming in a hurry.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle of the Audis with the Ferrari not far behind, but yeah, Christian Faulkner not having the outright pace to keep going at the moment in time. Maybe his tyres are just wearing out on the end of his second stint of how he would like them. Will X is just closing in on that gap at the moment, but Mark Fletcher at 58.65, not quite a second, because the top two have pulled their pace up forward, but that top three are closing in like an accordion.
Yeah, this is like I mentioned, and we did kind of mention how drivers these days just really go all out no matter what. But as we're seeing right now, this race has kind of stretched itself just a little bit, as Sivi Sabo and Behrens are both in the pits right now for the LMP2s. But it has started to stretch out, and it's all starting to come back together. We're 45 minutes out from the finale, or the finish of this race. So gonna be interesting here to see if any of these drivers have been holding something in their back pocket for this last stint.
Yeah, Sivi Sabo, Dawson, Behrens just leaving the pits, and Larson is back in the pit lane. I'm sure he was only in the pits a lap or two ago, so I'm not sure why that is, but the swap in positions between Dawson and Sivi Sabo will be just down to pit lane position. I'll spit it out. And as you can see, Dawson pitting ahead of Sivi Sabo, and there's also a car in there. I think that may have been Chris Puddicombe in the Lamborghini, so he is out there in the pit lane as well. This is Jack Behrens, 3rd in class, he's managed to stay on the lead lap for now, and he's trying to close in. But Sivi Sabo has not returned out of the pits, and Dawson is. There is Sivi Sabo, so what has happened there has maybe, because Sivi Sabo pitted with about a 15-second lead.
I'd be watching Sivi Sabo's last lap times right now. I believe that Sivi Sabo has gone for some tires. That is the only way, unless Sivi Sabo missed his pits. But you mentioned about 20 seconds extra for tires, and that's about what Dawson has on Sivi Sabo, minus a 15. So yeah, 15 plus 5 is about 20. I can't do math, I promise. But yeah, I think that may have been a tire stop for Sivi Sabo. So we're about to see and you can already see that gap closing. I think Sivy is taking tires. We're about to see some outright pace here by that number 19 car.
Yeah, I wonder if Dawson didn't take him on first stop. Maybe Saab or took him on first stop and didn't take him on the second stop to try and double stint him now, knowing that they'll take tyres once in this race in the Lmp2 class.
Yeah, this is interesting. Right now, Sivy just trying to get around some of this lap traffic of these GT3s and, you know, probably trying not to push as hard as he can, especially on these out laps. iRacing is so good. They really do a great job, like we mentioned. Tire temps. Oh, my goodness. I thought Sivy was going for a dive there. That was probably a pretty good move to stay back there, not to wreck Gannon's race or Grebstad's race or anybody else's for that matter. But now Sivy does have some clear track. Going to kind of see what kind of lap times he's going to be able to turn after he comes across the line here to finish this one. But, yeah, Dawson there in first place. See what his last lap time was. About 2:37, 2:69. Again, that is with the pit stop, and that's going to be the same for Sivy So we'll see what kind of pace Sivy has now with the new tires on. That's all I can think that he did to be able to lose all that time. I mean, I said Sivy hasn't put a leg wrong or a foot wrong yet, but I mean, maybe our commentator cursed him as well.
Or maybe he was just bored and fancied a chase.
I'm telling you what, if I was that far in the lead, which I never am, I'd keep going. But you know, maybe Sivy is used to being that far in the lead and did want a bit of a chase. Obviously, it makes for good commentating, doesn't it? When we have stuff to commentate on, when we have some awesome racing side by side battling, that's always more exciting for us up here. So, yeah, hopefully we're going to be able to have a good race here at the end of this one. Just keep an eye there. It doesn't look like Sivy is really gaining much time on Dawson at the moment.
No, he'll have to bring them tyres up to temperature. Back in the GT3 class, Will X has managed to get through on Christian Volkner, probably round at turn one, looking at where they're positioned on the circuit. So that is a move up into fourth place. Here we are onto the pit straight. And it's going to be a lovely move into turn one by the looks of things.
Gets down low. Will does give him. They give each other space. Volkner sees him there. That is amazing racing by both of those guys. I want to just say that pass was not as easy as Will X made it look, because that turn one is extremely treacherous. Number one, you're on the concrete. Number two, it starts out super wide. You could fit 5 buses across that lane going into one. The exit, I mean, if I'm making a comparison, you could probably fit a Beetle in there. I mean, it slims down and skinnies up so much. As you saw, Volkner did get on the grass just a little bit coming out of one, but great racing by both of those guys. And moving on, Will's looking at the next guy up the road, and he's got a long way to go.
Yeah, he's got 38 seconds to close in on the guys in front, but the guy in front is Mark Fletcher, who is the fastest GT car on the circuit at the moment. He is now only 3 seconds behind Gribstad and Gannon.
Yeah, I don't know who that was. Barons. He again tried to make a move around the outside of 2 GT3's cars. Didn't quite get the second one done until about halfway down the front straight there. Wasn't quite Sivy-Sabo-esque, but that was pretty close. Another great awareness by all 3 of those drivers, to be honest.
So we are on lap 45 of this 2-hour race. We have just under 40 minutes remaining, and Andrew Dawson leads Sivy-Sabo by 15 seconds now. Something has happened to Sivy-Sabo. He was only 5 seconds back, so he's... Oh no, sorry, it was timing rejigging itself. It is 4.7, so it's still not really closing down by Sivy-Sabo, considering the gap he pulled out.
Yeah, he's gained, it looks like maybe about 6/10 of a second since they've come out of the pits, but it's not like he's really gained as much as we thought he would.
No, it's certainly, he's going to get caught up behind the Ferrari here. manages to pull off the move. He's getting some good practice at passing the slower GT cars, but currently these are the only guys out in front of the LMP2s. Jacob Behrens holding on to a minute off the lead, and Carl Larson and Jesse Elliott are a lap and 2 laps down respectively, and that is the only LMP2 cars we still have in this race. In the GT3 class, we have Hakan Gribstead and Mark Fletcher both in the pits from 2nd and 3rd, so this will be their final stops, but Gannon carries on again.
Yeah, this is impressive driving, to say the least, by Gannon. Not only has he been in the lead most of the race, he's been fuel saving quite a bit up there in front. So Patrick Gannon, after this race, if you mind kind of hitting me up, I would love to hear some of your secrets that you probably won't ever give away. But no, this is impressive to see how well he's done.
Racing secrets.
Well,
I mean, he might have other secrets for all we know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. Yes, racing secrets, of course it is. But no, the amount of fuel saving he's been able to do there up there in first place. You know, and I figured Grebstad would have been the one to come in way later than Gannon, because Grebstad was right on the back of Gannon for, man, how many laps? I mean, at least 20 laps. It was Gannon and Grebstad about 0.2 of a second off of each other. So to see Grebstad or Gannon still out there that's a feat of its own right there.
Yeah, it certainly is. Chris Tapio has come out in between Fletcher and Gribstad. He's still yet to pit, but he's doing a good job to be in touching distance of these GT cars. But there is Gannon, and we saw him go 2 or 3 laps longer last time by, so will he be able to do that this time? No, he's very tight. He's coming straight into the pit lane, reacting to a pit stop, and let's see how long his last pit stop is.
Yeah, this is Gannon in now. I would assume, I don't know, like you said, this may not, Gannon's probably not going to take tires here, because if he does, that may put Grebstad within striking distance of him. Still sitting there in the pits. Right now, Grebstad coming through Le Mans onto the Ullman Straight. Got a long run down the Ullman Straight until you get to Sunset Corner. But Gannon's still there, still in the pits. Just keep an eye on this.
Yeah, the 18 Porsche coming down into Sunset Bend, taking it nice wide line, cuts in early, pit exit for Gannon. He will be building up the speed. It will be close, but I think Gannon will do it just again. Will he get out in front of that Audi that's coming up behind of 12th placed? That is Timmy Bray, and he's going to get out in front of the whole pack of them. So that's a good pit stop timing by Gannon, and he now leads by an extra second, I think, compared to his pit stop. So he's 2.7 in the lead from Gribstad. Then there's Tapio in the Mercedes, and then Mark Fletcher, who's now getting held up behind, but yet to stop Chris Tapio. Yeah,
this is impressive driving by Gannon. Really, these top 3. I mean, and Fletcher, his best lap is a 1:58.392. I know he got into a bit of trouble there at the beginning, but he is definitely starting to try to make some moves here. So we'll kind of see, again, got about 35 minutes left. Apparently I can't do math. About 35 minutes left in the race here, so Fletcher's going to have to start making some moves pretty quick if he wants to get this done.
Yeah, it's something he's really got to start making a move on, because he doesn't want to lose a bit time behind the Mercedes, and Mercedes will have to pit soon, but how soon? Because if I believe the 10 car did manage to go 2 or 3 laps longer as well as Gannon last time by, and really cutting the inside of that corner, so he's really on a racing mood right now.
Yeah, Gannon,
they have a P2 of Dawson, the leader, coming up behind him, who has extended his lead to 6 seconds. And very wide by Sivi Sabo in the background. Lights flashing by Fletcher, trying to distract Tapio down into Sunset Bend. That's not going to work, and Fletcher is going to be stuck behind for another lap.
Yeah, I think just that flash there, Fletcher is definitely trying to make a move. And yes, there goes Tapio. So Fletcher has been cleared. Going to start chasing down Grebstad now. Probably gets a little bit of slipstream help from Civisabo there, going into one. Now Civisabo disappears off into the sunset. Man, I missed that by one corner. But anyways, yeah, this is going to be interesting. Fletcher, again, still moving pretty quick. 59.4 was his last lap. I think he was probably stuck up behind Tapio there a little longer than he wanted to be, but we've got about 30 minutes left in the race. Not saying that he's not going to be able to get this done. So just, again, there are quite a few battles to keep an eye on here. The battle between Civisabo and Dawson, about 6 seconds now. So Dawson is...
I think it's about 2.5 because it has closed down, and I think timing's just got a little caught out, I think.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say Dawson or Civisabo really hasn't made much ground up, but I'm about to get proved wrong again. Not the first time, definitely won't be the last. So, yeah, Mark Fletcher up here into the podium positions now. Lost a position from the start, but he was back there in 9th place there for quite a while. So I think he's had a great drive to get back up here to where he is, and I'm sure he's pretty happy about it.
Yeah, Fletcher driving really well as we now look at Richardson trying to make a move on the number 8 of Volkner, it looks like. And will he be able to make it through? Yes, it's Volkner going through. Is it Volkner coming through Richardson? Just trying to work out. Yes, it is.
No, that was Richardson.
No, Richardson coming through, sorry.
Richardson on Volkner. So, well, he was, and now Richardson getting a little bit of blinking, but he's still back there up in front of Volkner at the moment.
We always have to just double check they haven't retired from a race, because it can just flash like that. But certainly we've got the top 3 in the GT class and the top 2 in the P2 class going to be fighting it all the way in this last half hour of this Sebring community event for Finding Speed. But these battles are going on all the way down the field, and this is a battle for 7th place between Richardson and Christian Volkner, and they will be looking to try and close the 23-second gap forward to Tyler Campbell. That's, I think, a little bit too big.
Yeah, that's going to be a big ask for those guys. And oh my goodness, looking at that last lap for Fletcher, a 2:05.6. Must have been a bit of an off there. Yeah, it definitely was. Look at that gap now between Grebstad and Fletcher, about 11 seconds.
Yeah, here we go with a replay of it. It's down into Sunset Bend, and I guess he just carries too much speed and the back end comes round. Yeah, it's so common to do, and he's quite lucky that the car spun to the outside of the circuit, because I see people that spin just that little bit later in that corner and get wedged on that grass by Pit.
Yeah, that is a very tough spot to be able to make a move, or just not even make a move to be able to get through. So I ran a TCR race around here a couple weeks ago, and speaking of cars that want to kill you, those things are extremely difficult. They're super snappy. Tend to want to oversteer pretty bad on the braking, and it's so bad through Sunset Bend. But I think every vehicle that goes through Sunset probably has a bit of that problem. Just again, the bumpy concrete. You mentioned the porpoising earlier. Unloading and reloading the suspension is never what you want to do here. And this is Timothy Bray here in between Gannon and Grebstad at the moment. Ooh, this is
I think he's trying to fight Coco.
Oh my goodness.
That was exactly as we said. I think that was Coco spinning to the inside and almost ended up on that grass. He managed to just avoid that, but in the middle of the 2 GT leaders, a bit daring to go. And I do have to mention Timothy Bray's livery. We're in a position in the world where we're lucky enough to sit here, commentate on this racing, and not worry about what is going on outside of the building that we are all in. And I think that, you know, we don't do political speeches on the channel or political things, but we can certainly show our support to the people of Ukraine with liveries and comments that we do. So great livery there, and it's completely different to some of the other Ukraine liveries that I've seen on iRacing lately.
Yeah, no, that is a beautiful livery, and again, not getting political here, but thank you, Timothy, for showing your support and voicing. You know, it's most of the world is free, so you know, it's pretty awesome to see everybody, you know, showing their support. I mean, me being here in America and being in the military myself, it's always a bit of a touchy conversation, but yeah, thank you, Timothy, for doing that, and you know, thank you everybody for who's been showing support for anything they believe in, and in a nice way. That's what I want. That's all I'm gonna say about that. You know, you've got some pretty interesting views out there, and it's just cool that we're all able to, and that iRacing allows us and Apex allows us to show our support and what we feel is right.
Exactly, and nicely put as well. I mean, we could also say, like the last year's Haas, it's not a flag.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's yeah, speaking of last year's Haas. But anyways, we're going to get back here to the race all of a sudden. Grebstad here, about 1.3 seconds, has started to close that gap again on Gannon. I'm wondering if Grebstad maybe I'm starting to see the later stint, and it could be car setup. I bet you it is car setup as well, that Gannon's able to pull quite a big gap here on Grebstad at the beginning of this stint, and then Grebstad just finds a way, just digs deep towards the middle end of these stints, and he just claws back quite a bit of time.
Yeah, he's clawing back quite a bit of time, but not as much time as Daniel Civisabo, who's now on the back of Andrew Dawson at the front of this LMP2 race. We have like 25 minutes to go, and the P2 cars are side by side for the lead of this race through the Le Mans complex, and they're trying to get past the 7th place car of Nathan Richardson in the Audi, but managed to do it safely, but that was difficult for them both. Now they're trying to break the toe down the back straight. Dawson knows how dangerous Civisabo can be in terms of his pace. He's been closing in slowly but surely. It took him about 15 minutes to get this 5-second gap down, which is pretty quick in P2, to be fair. And now he is here in the slipstream, and this will be a battle towards the end of the race.
Yeah, I think I apologize for Lewis, but your job's about to get pretty hectic here, because we've got this battle here, which is on at this moment. And I'm going to keep an eye on, while we stay on this battle, I'm going to keep an eye on that battle between Gannon and Grebstad, which has now come in underneath a second. But, I mean, if you're Civisabo in this moment, what do you... I mean, you got to make the move, right? You're 30 minutes out, and there's still another pit stop to go, which anything could happen. So if I'm Civisabo, I'm not waiting around, and neither he has the same. Is he going to make it through the... No, he's not. That was a great positioning by Dawson to get through there, but now Civisabo is going to be on the back of him here, coming up to the Allman Straight, if he even waits that long, which I don't think he's going to.
That was a great move by Civisabo. Dawson putting the blockers on all through the circuit. They're still side by side as they head up onto the runway into Le Mans. Dawson trying to go around the outside. He's not going to pull that one off this time by. And Civisabo takes the lead of this race with 25 minutes to go. And it's going to be a battle all the way. And now we look back at the GT class, where Grebstad has closed in on Gannon. And this is the same kind of thing. A bit like you were saying, Adam, you've got to make the move now. Not just because of the pit stops, not because there's less than half an hour to go, but when you catch somebody, you have to pass them, or you can get into a little bit of a trance behind them, as Dawson is now fighting back because Civisabo ran wide on the exit of Sunset. Dawson goes to the outside, and he's going to try and duck back underneath, doesn't quite make it. Civisabo keeps the door shut, but he's going to have to start white lining this circuit, because I know Andrew Dawson, and he's not going to be putting anything left on the table here as he tries to take the win here at Sebring.
Throw out fuel consumption, throw out tire management. At this point, if you're Dawson, you have got to stay on the back of Civisabo, and you are hoping some of these GT3s that they're coming up on try to help him out just a little bit. It doesn't look like, yeah, that GT3 did hold Civisabo up maybe just a little bit. He's going to be able to get the slipstream off of him, though, as they're coming around this S portion. We're going to see if Dawson's going to be able to make anything happen, but I do believe Sivi Sabo is slowly making that. But, man, Dawson way later on the brakes than Sivi Sabo was and able to gain some of that time back again.
Yeah, Tyler Campbell did a good job of trying to get out of the way in that straight. And next is Chris Tapio, who is in that Mercedes. We've seen him a few times. And Sivi Sabo not wasting any time, straight up the inside and going, I'm coming through. And this is where, as Colin McCone goes absolutely flying on the braking markers. But
that's just extra braking for Sivi Sabo.
Yeah, a little bit of downforce. But Dawson, it's a little bit easier for him because once they jump out the way for Sivi Sabo, Dawson can just slot his car straight back into that gap.
Yeah, if Lewis would be able to pull up a track map here to see if there are any like big battles going on in front of these guys. I see the car in 4th position up there. Looks like Will X that they're going to be catching here pretty quick. But, I mean, after that, it's looking like Dawson, or yeah, Sivi Sabo's going to be in the clear here for just a little while. On what the unfortunate thing is here is I have a feeling I see what's coming, and I see a GT3 battle for 1st and 2nd that these guys are going to have to navigate as well if Dawson can stay close enough.
Yeah, Sivi Sabo getting a bit sideways through that. His S-Ben's really pushing hard to try and open this gap out as they close in on one of the Audis. That is Will X. Into the hairpin. Will Sivi Sabo get a little held up? No, I think he's caught him right at the right time because he can just power around the outside of him now. And it's something these GT drivers really have to learn about, trying to stay out the way of the two cars. As you saw, also having a bit of an issue there with Will X, not because of anyone's driving, just second guessing what the driver's doing.
Well, so here's what as a GT3 driver, I do get a bit irritated sometimes by some of these LMP guys that I've been in races with when they tell me to hold my line. Hold your line, hold your line, hold your line. We'll get around you. We'll find a way. Then when you hold your line, then they're mad that you held your line and you blocked them in a corner or something. Like, it is so tough, and I am not faulting anybody, but just the difference in speed in these two vehicles really shows itself. I mean, as you saw that move, that as Dawson was trying to get around, who was that? Audi, I believe. Whoever that Audi was. It was just, again, nothing was done wrong, but just the closing rate, the closing speed of the difference in these two cars is massive.
Yeah, it's a huge...
Oh my goodness!
Ooh, that was a little kiss up the rear for Gribstad on Cannon, and this is going to be a huge battle towards the end of the race. Mark Fletcher's now starting to close that gap back in, but not quick enough. He's just matching his time. That's Jesse Elliott.
Elliott wants to get around these two. I think he can tell that they're battling. He's probably going to look for a time to get around them. It's easy for everybody to make this move. Yeah, you can see Elliott just hanging back. He sees what's at stake. He knows these guys are 1 and 2 battling in these GT3s. Great job by Elliott, as I thought he was going to go for a move there, but he doesn't. He's going to try to say he's going to wait for the straightaway here and just try to keep this battle. But the problem is now he's stuck between these two, which I know is probably upsetting Grevstad just a little bit, but I believe if I'm Elliott, he did the right thing there.
Yeah, Gannon just didn't quite know. Maybe he wasn't quite looking for the P2 coming through and more concentrated on Gribstad, which is completely understandable. But in terms of lapping cars, especially in iRacing, the blue flags don't quite mean jump out the way. Oh, and Barron's getting sideways as he tries to get into a pit as quickly as he can for his final stop. He was one of the early pitters earlier on. So the GT battle continues with Gribstad and Gannon half a second apart. 9 seconds further back is Mark Fletcher with Will X 44 seconds off the lead. And there is a bit of a battle between Tapo and Amble and Richardson and Volkner for 5th and 7th in class. So battle's still all the way through 2 hours into this race, and I wouldn't be surprised if these battles are pretty much the same when they do the 12-hour.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where you kind of mentioned it's go, go, go for these guys. There really isn't much holdup. There was a bit of a lag, I'd say, towards you know, about that 1 hour to the hour 20 mark, but they're all starting to close back up. It's just amazing to me that no matter how long the races are, they always seem to close up just a little bit at the end. I mean, and you know it is probably driver tactic from some of these guys, just saving their stuff. I believe probably Grebstad may have been saving some stuff. He did have a bit of an issue there after coming out of the pits on his last stint, got a little bit sideways, but all of a sudden, and this could be setup related as well, all of a sudden, Grebstad is right back in it.
Yeah, Grebstad really does look the quicker of the two drivers at this moment in time as he's closing that gap back up. Gannon gained a little bit of slipstream from the car coming past the P2 car of Elliott coming through. As you can see in the background, that is Timothy Bray in between the front two and the charging Mark Fletcher. It's really close between the top two though, and the times are just matching each other tenth for tenth. But Mark Fletcher is about a second a lap quicker again, so that gap is coming down.
These guys are going to have to stop again, correct? Because it's looking like the pits for both Gannon and Grebstad, they've pitted twice. A lot of these guys have pitted 3 times further back in the field in that GT3. So I do believe they're going to have to stop one more time, which, if it wasn't interesting enough already, it's about to be even more.
Yeah, I think they will probably try and stretch it, considering we've got 15 minutes left. They'd have to be coming in the next 5 laps, because I can't see him making a mistake if he needed to pit for 10 minutes of fuel, where it'd be even less than 10 minutes at that stage. Here's Andrew Dawson just going around the outside of Bray in the Lamborghini, and he's keeping nice and close to Civisabo, only 3 seconds back. Both these two will need to pit, we believe.
Yeah, absolutely, and we are seeing some of these LMP drivers making their stops. And again, Civisabo, he's probably not going to pit. We know he's not going to pit for tires. Again, there's only 15 minutes left in the race, and he is steadily gapping Dawson, and this may now be, David, the tire wear factor for Dawson compared to Civisabo. Has maybe started to rear its head just a little bit, as we believe that Civisabo did come in for tires the last time, and Dawson.
Yeah, Civisabo carving past the lead 2 GT cars, nipping in for a lit.
That's one way to do it. Anyways,
so being 18th. Being 12 seconds quicker a lap is not enough. You need that little hint of slipstream to make it past.
That was unbelievable driving, I'm going to say it, by Civisabo to not cause any incidents, which could have very easily happened. Is Dawson, see, this is a guy that is not going to be waiting around. Dawson already does get around Grebstad, and he's got to, looks like he's going to make a move, but that has, again, close that gap between Gannon and Grebstad back within 0.4 of a second now.
Yeah, the gap has closed back down. Grebstad is saying, thank you very much, I will take that time back. And now I am 0.4 off the lead, and we'll have a nice slipstream as we see that is Civisabo making it past some more back markers. He's got a Ferrari just in front of him next of Roman Kubin, I think that is. He's making his way past, and he made it past Brad Couch earlier on. So, but Civisabo dealing with the traffic very nicely, and that seems to be the difference between him and Dawson here today.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can kind of see this gap is slowly but surely 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Yeah, I mean, I just think it's probably a difference in car setup, as well as, you know, when they come in and decide to take tires. That could have been way worse than it actually was. Dawson had to get on the brakes there for the Ferrari, but able to get around him pretty cleanly and move on there. And now that gap, just from that, look at how much that gap is stretched. It's now up to 5.5 seconds.
In them little moments, Adam, you sound like my spotter in the middle of the Petit Le Mans we did last year when we were leading by miles, and I was making slight overtaking moves he wasn't quite happy with. Yeah, there's a lot of them high-pitched moments where it went just down my ear, which is very nice. But here we have Gribstad with 12 minutes to go to find a way past Gannon. Now, he's shown the pace, he's had the pace all race, and we said, it's the last part of the race, you keep yourself clean, you get into position to be able to fight for the lead. He is there, but has he left it too late? Does Gannon know all of his strengths around the Sebring circuit, or will the Porsche driver be able to spring a surprise on the Audi?
If I am Grebstad, I believe Grebstad's probably in a better position than Gannon at this point, because he's had to look at the back bumper of that Audi for almost 2 hours. So he knows exactly where Grebstad is making his moves and the lines he's taking, or where Gannon is making his moves and the lines he's taking. And now Grebstad is on the charge, and he's going to go for it here.
Nice move by Gribstad. Oh, there's a little bit of contact, and Gannon holds it round the outside. Gribstad
gonna hold on to it though.
Inside. Will he go to the inside again here? No, he doesn't. They have the car of Jakob Behrens closing down, who's third in class as a slow GT car as well, which gets right out of the way.
This is very intense. I have no idea. I don't even know what I'm doing at this moment if I'm these two leaders in this GT3 section. You know you've got to let this LMP around because he's in third in his class. So man, you know Behrens wants to get by so bad, but I think he understands the implications of what's going on right now with these two as well. So, yeah, anyways, here we go. Looks like Gannon's going to try to catch that slipstream a little bit of Behrens, but it's not going to be enough. This is going to be where it's going to have to happen right here. Looks like Gannon's going to have that better line from the outside. If he can just stick alongside of Grebstad, he's going to have the line going into one, which is definitely the optimal line, because you're going to be able to push Grebstad just a little bit wider, plus Grebstad can power it around the outside here, which it doesn't look like he's going to be able to do.
And the positions stay as they are. While we're discussing that move very quickly, Andrew Dawson headed for the pit lane from the P2 class, so he has decided he needs a little top of fuel to get to the end of this race. But Gribstad is all over back of Gannon, and Gannon needs to hold his breath and fight. As a footballer commentator said over here once, you need to fight like beavers and hold on to that position.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think Grebstad is definitely putting more pressure on Gannon than he has the whole race. He has been riding around behind Gannon. I don't know if Gannon was ready for the amount of pressure that Grebstad is. All of a sudden, he's turned it up. He's actually going for overtaking moves that we didn't see happen earlier in the race, and you can see Grebstad now just slowly closing in. He's much better under braking than Gannon is, but Gannon is way better corner exit, and that gap technically kind of stays the same. But if Grebstad is this good under braking in all these corners, as Gannon does go a little bit wide there, and that's just going to pull that gap back in again. If Grebstad can just be that much later of a braker, it's going to help him into some of these tighter corners where we may not normally see passes.
Yeah, Mark Fletcher, third in class at this moment in time, 1 second quicker than these guys. That's not quite enough for him at this moment, but if he starts fighting as they come back up behind the Ferrari, I believe that is of Tyler Campbell, who's down in 10th in class at the moment. Speaking of big movers at the moment, Paul Clist and Stephen Brown, big movers with 12 and 10 positions. Tyler Campbell with 10 at the moment. Jesse Elliott.
I apologize. I think Grebstad, nope, he lost a little bit of time there. I thought he was going to back off and try to go on the inside of turn one that time. And there's another LMP behind him, so I apologize. Continue, David.
Yeah, that's Jesse Elliott, who I was going to say is the biggest mover overall with 28 positions, but he is in a P2, and the cars he's passed are GT cars, so you'd expect that. But here's the leaders getting held.
Oh my goodness!
Tyler Campbell, and we're going to get past Campbell, but this is not what Gannon needs. Gribstad is right up behind the Audi, and we
Campbell's
also
still
have
racing
Elliott.
him.
We still have Elliott trying to stay out the way. Gribstad to the outside of a hairpin. He's not going to make it. He's going to slip out wide, and Gannon will get the run. But will Gribstad get another slipstream? No, I think the gap's too big, and Gannon survives to fight another day.
That was, Grebstad, if he loses the race, he's kicking himself. That was his opportunity. Got held up just a little bit by Campbell. Just wasn't able to make that happen. And now we're going to see Elliott probably try to get around these two. Hopefully not before the Almond corner or the Almond straight on the back part of the track. It's going to, oh my goodness, Grebstad does get a little bit wide there. Mistakes starting to happen all of a sudden.
Both cars giving room to Jesse Elliott, making his way past. Currently 5th in the P2 class, but Gribstad 4/10 of a second behind, taking as much curb as he can. Oh, and sideways across, maybe too much curb there in Le Mans, and he's now dropped 2/10 of a second, 2.5 in that corner, and that is not helping him out. Meanwhile, Fletcher has got the gap down to 7.5. He is still coming at these two leaders, but he needs them to battle that a little bit harder, because there is possibly only 2 or 3, maybe 3 or 4 laps to go of this motor race. But across the line comes Gannon and Gribstad. We're focusing on these two because this is the important battle, and the closest battle. Sivisabo still leads Dawson by a clear 1 minute 2 after Dawson's pit stop. So Sivisabo looking very clear to the end of the race. But every 10th will count for Gribstad and Gannon here in this battle for the lead of GT3.
While we've got a moment, I would just like to say before this heats up again, the racing between these two GT3 drivers is, I mean, just blowing my mind. These guys have been racing hard for 2 hours. It's just impressive that these guys have been able to hold on for that long, as Elliott does get a little bit, stays out of the way. Elliott just lost it there to the hairpin. We've seen that happen with a lot of these drivers, probably a bit of that porpoising that you were talking about, but getting back onto this, it's just amazing that these guys have been able to battle this close for this long.
Yeah, the gap's out to 7/10 now because Gribstad just had to be careful. Here's Dawson coming through, and he's decided he needs to push a bit harder, and that is because Daniel Sivisabo is in the pits with 6 minutes to go. He's decided he needs to pit for that little bit of fuel, can't quite make it. Dawson will probably not be able to fully close the gap in as Elliott makes his way back past Gannon. No, because Sivisabo is headed back out to the pits now, but Dawson maybe saw a little glimpse of light in his challenge for the P2 glory.
Yeah, he definitely did, but I think Sivisabo, with that tire change he took on the stint before, did not have to come in and take tires this time, and that's going to be all she wrote there, unless Sivisabo does make a pretty big mistake, which, as of this moment, is going to be a tough ask for him because he has not put a foot wrong this whole race. So, yeah, again, this battle, even though we wanted it to be one up there in the Lmp2s, looks like it's going to be a pretty easy one for Sivisabo today. But Gribstad and Gannon back here just are not letting up.
Yeah, the only other close battle I can see in the field is Timothy Bray and Tyler Campbell, which is the group that the two leaders have just passed. And now the gap is coming down. It's visually coming down by Gribstad. He's pushing hard, and in the last lap, he was actually 2/10 slower than Patrick Gannon, who is just pacing himself. He's doing a nice, calm job through the, or should I say, it seems like a nice, calm job through the traffic. He could be sitting in the corner shaking for all we know. And so he has 7/10 on Gribstad.
So he won in the FindingSpeed GT3 race yesterday here, and there were a couple moments where I felt he was under pressure. He comes into the interview afterwards and just cool as a cucumber. I mean, it was just unbelievable. He had raced pretty hard that race, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I was just fuel saving, and it was a good race. I had some good battles, but just the way he was talking, I was like, man, were you really fuel saving, or were you sweating underneath that helmet?" But anyways, we'll see what happens here for this one. But no, right now Gannon is still holding that 7/10 of a second lead.
Yeah, Gribstad taking all the curb and a little bit more to try and close in. He didn't get sideways that time, but the gap is 7/10 of a second, so this is probably the end of the challenge for Mark Fletcher, who's now 8 seconds back on these two and not going to be closing that gap in. So Mark Fletcher trying to consolidate that third place. He's currently 42 seconds ahead of Will X, who's in 4th place, ahead of Chris Tapio in 5th, Nathan Richardson in 6th, and Christian Volkner in 7th in class. So that, and Ruben Kubin is in 8th, so that is the top 8 in GT3, whereas Suvi Sabo still leads from Dawson, Behrens and Larson, with Elliott in the top 5, the only 5 P2 cars still running in this race.
Good job on Elliott for taking the top 5. Decided not to get out of this race, and he's still in there, 3 laps down. But you know, again, this is still getting practice. It's just as important as this race is. I think next week is what their main goal is. So yeah, great job, good job on Elliott for hanging out and hanging in the race here.
Yeah, this battle is not over yet, though. Gribstad has closed another 3 tenths overall in the last lap, and he did have the gap down to 4 tenths under braking. But Cannon just controlling it for now. He knows he's been defending from Gribstad for 1 hour 58 minutes at the moment, and
yeah, what's another 2 more?
Yeah, exactly. I think that will be going through Cannon's head, whereas Gribstad will be going, I know everything I can, and now is the time I have to try and get past you. I do believe we might be on to the last lap now for the leaders. Daniel Sivisaro leading the way from Andrew Dawson. Seeing where Sivisaro is on circuit, he might actually get 1 more, but we'll just see as Sivisaro comes round. As you can see, P2's making progress in the background, but we'll stick with these 2 leaders. You can see on the map the gold 1 at the top end is Sivisaro.
Yeah, it looks like this may be the last lap. Yep. Yeah, unless Sivi Sabo decides to put some of that Ferrari power,
white flag.
Yeah, that Ferrari power that they had in 2017. I don't think he's going to be able to get around the lap just in time. So white flag. So this is going to be the race, and I think Gannon and Grebstad know that. Grebstad, I mean, the gap between him and Fletcher is about 9 seconds, so Grebstad can basically go for broke here, go for a move that he doesn't think Gannon is expecting.
Yeah, Gribstad is going to try everything along the way to get past Gannon, and he will definitely want to make the move as quickly as he can, but not allow Gannon to come back. He looks up the inside of a hairpin, a bumpy braking area, tough for him to get through, but here we are at the front. It's Daniel Sivisabo who's going to win in the P2 class here at Sebring, and does some burnouts across the line. The FAA won't be too happy with that, but we certainly are, as Andrew Dawson is going to come round with 2nd place, 4th car 33. Car 33 finishing 2nd, doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have a safety car. Anyway.
No mechanical failures.
Yeah, Andrew Dawson will come across the line to be 2nd in the class. Jakob Behrens has finished in 3rd, and we wait for Larson, but this is the closest battle on circuit. Gribstad all over the back of Gannon as they come through Le Mans. They have a car in front as well. Gribstad gets the exit onto the back straight. It's going to be too much. I think Patrick Gannon, who has defended stoutly throughout the race, even had the gap out to a couple of seconds at one point, but defended for 2 hours, is going to head into sunset.
Oh my goodness.
Really deep on the brakes, and it's not going to work. And Patrick Gannon comes across the line to win the race here at Sebring for FindingSpeed. 2nd to Hagon Gribstad, who will be disappointed not to win, but what a race that's been. And Gannon, leave our friends Colin alone. Here, and also Mark Fletcher already finished in 3rd place, Will X in 4th, Chris Tapio in 5th, Richardson in 6th, Faulkner 7th, and Cubin in 8th in class. Couch and Bree bringing across the top 10 of the GT3 field.
unbelievable racing. Tyler Campbell back there finishes 12th. It's unfortunate for him, but man, he still gained so many positions. You got Okaranza there, gained 5 positions, finished 13th. Brown 14th, Clist 15th, 2 laps down, and then we had Pudicombe in 16th. I believe everybody else was out of the race. So, getting here to the race results. Whenever they do decide to come up, we're trying to get everybody across the line here. So for the Lmp2s, it was a very close race for quite a while between Daniel Civisabo and Andrew Dawson, but Civisabo, I think, maybe have just had a bit of the better strategy. Dawson had to come in right at the end, and we saw Civisabo take that pretty late first stint pit stop, which probably helped him out quite a bit. So Civisabo comes home first with Andrew Dawson in second, Jacob Behrens in third. First car 1 lap down. Also 1 lap down is Kettle Larson. And then 3 laps down, Jesse Elliott, and then the guys that did not finish the race, Drew Becker, Carriget, and Torp. For the GT, go ahead.
Sorry, for the GT3 field, we have Patrick Gannon, who in the Audi, who defended all the way stoutly for 2 hours ahead of Hacken Gribstead. Mark Fletcher putting a storming drive to finish in 3rd place with some of the quickest laps for that field. 4th goes to Will X ahead of Chris Tapio. Nathan Richardson in 6th from Christian Faulkner. Roman Kubin in 7th. Roman Kubin in 8th ahead of Brack Couch, and Timothy Bray with that lovely Ukrainian livery for the support of the country. 11th went to Tyler Campbell, who was up in the top 6 at one point but fell back later on. Stefano Cucco in 17th overall and 12th in class. Dana Kazar, who we saw in qualifying but didn't see much of in the race, he comes home in 13th from Stephen Brown. Paul Joseph Clist, Callum Puddicombe, Ollie Morgan, who we saw up there earlier on with some great speed as well. A good strategy put him up there earlier on. Daniel Krajewski and Drew Becker was the final driver to enter the race.
Yeah, this is, and looking here at the back towards the back of the field, looks like some of these guys entered and may have run a couple laps and then yeah, just decided to hop on out of there. But finishing that out, it's going to be Teachhoff, Doherty, Bimbick, Courtney, Flanagan, and Pugh to round out the 25 drivers that, entered the race, but maybe didn't take part in it. So, holy cow, David. What a race, man. That GT3 battle was something else.
Yeah, it was an amazing battle in both of the classes, and we didn't quite get the overtaking moves done for the cars in second place, but that really pushed on the positions. It was battles for 2 hours. Civisabo was just too good for Dawson in the end, but I think actually Gannon defended brilliantly against Gribstad all the way. It doesn't look like we're going to have anybody into the interview waiting area for this event. So
yeah, we've got about 3 minutes left from what I'm getting here, looking at, and it doesn't look like anybody's going to be joining the interview waiting. I just wanted to kind of expand on your thoughts about that GT3 between Grebstad and Gannon. That was, I couldn't do that. I could not run around nose to tail. I mean, I think there were probably only a few minutes where they were outside of a second of each other. So for them to be able to get as much time as they did, and you want to talk about getting practice, they got practice racing each other, and I have a sneaky suspicion, considering how close those guys were, they might be in the same race there come next weekend. So unbelievable driving by those two, but really for everybody here that decided to take part in this community race, Sebring Sunday community race by FindingSpeed. Huge shout out to Russell for putting this on and getting all these drivers involved and really just making my day as well. I got to talk about some racing, got to watch some racing this morning and talk about it later on in the day. So yeah, thank you guys for putting this on.
And just to quickly run through FindingSpeed. FindingSpeed is our iRacing and YouTube content creator providing broadcast special events, leagues, crack guides and how-to videos for iRacing enthusiasts, head over to findingspeed.com/race to learn about the next special event that will be streamed. That is the Green Hell, which is a 2-hour solo sprint race to help teams prepare for the iRacing Nürburgring 24 hours around the Nordschleife, so well worth seeing that event, and that will be live on Apex Racing TV. But we've had some great racing here at Sebring here tonight. Any final thoughts, Adam?
I mean, I pretty much think I mentally exhausted, and I can assume those guys probably are as well. I just I want to thank Lewis and you, David, for tagging along with me here and making this quite a bit of fun, and again, FindingSpeed for putting this on for everybody, and you know, Apex as well for allowing me to commentate on races like this. It's just a pretty cool thing all around. So yeah, I think that's about it for me.
So thank you, Adam Thompson, for joining us in the commentary box, Lewis Arai in the production office, and myself, David Whitehouse. I thank you all for joining us, and we will be rejoining the community races for Sebring in a while's time. But also, if you're taking part in the iRacing Sebring 12 hours next week, good luck to you all, and hopefully we can see you all succeeding in whatever you're trying to achieve in the race, whether it's victory or just try and finish it. But for now, this has been Apex Racing TV and the FindingSpeed Sebring Sunday community race. Stay safe, and we'll see you again soon.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, You will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers, including Peter Berryman, John Robertson, Brandon Trano, and IndyCar World Champion Alex Palou. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.